Leute, die in keiner toxischen Beziehung waren, die können sich jetzt das, was ich jetzt hier gleich schilder, nicht vorstellen. Das können wirklich nur Leute nachvollziehen, die in einer toxischen Beziehung drin waren, die den Discard bekommen haben, also die von ihrem Partner das Ciao-Ciao-Kakao bekommen haben oder die selber gegangen sind. Und selbst wenn man selber gegangen ist, bekommt man es mit dem toxischen Liebeskummer zu tun. Weil gerade dann, wenn du derjenige warst, der gegangen ist, werden dich Zweifel und Gedanken plagen, ob du nicht vielleicht die Chance deines Lebens vergeigt hast und ob du nicht vielleicht derjenige warst, der den größten Fehler seines Lebens gemacht hat. Und das plagt einen und es treibt einen um. Und 24/7 an 365 Tagen, möge es nicht so lang gehen, 365 Tage, aber wie ich im Intro gesagt habe, es gibt Leute, die hängen über 3 Jahre schon drin. Also 24/7 plagst du dich mit den Gedanken an die Ex oder an den Ex. Das ist toxischer Liebeskummer. Immer wieder kommen Flashbacks und du fühlst dich wieder zurückversetzt in die Zeit und denkst, mein Gott, das war so schön und ich möchte es unbedingt wieder haben. Und wenn du dann in deinem stillen Kämmerlein bist, dann fließen die Tränen und du weißt nicht ein und aus vor lauter Kummer. Das ist toxischer Liebeskummer. Woran liegt es nun, dass man toxischen Liebeskummer hat? Naja, wie ich in früheren Videos schon erklärt habe, wenn man toxischen Liebeskummer hat, dann war man vorher in einer toxischen Beziehung drin. Und eine toxische Beziehung beinhaltet, dass derjenige, der dann da rausgeht aus der Beziehung, wie gesagt, vollkommen egal, ob du derjenige bist, der den Discard bekommen hat oder ob du derjenige warst, der selber gegangen ist, wenn du da rausgehst aus dieser Beziehung, dann bist du höchstwahrscheinlich traumatisiert und es hat sich eine körperliche und psychische Sucht eingestellt. Und so wie der Alkoholiker auf Entzug ist, so ist derjenige, der jetzt den toxischen Liebeskummer hat, im wahrsten Sinne des Wortes auch auf Entzug. Der macht genauso die Höllenqualen durch, die ein Süchtiger, der auf Entzug ist, gerade durchmacht. Und dann gibt es Kommentare von Zuschauern, da war ich selber erstaunt. Da sind mir auch mal so die Augen übergegangen, wo jemand geschrieben hat, er war früher heroinsüchtig. Ja, und dann ist er in eine Toxe geraten, also hat eine toxische Partnerschaft durchlebt. Und dieser Entzug, den er anschließend hatte, nachdem er sich von seiner toxischen Partnerin getrennt hatte, der war schlimmer als der Heroinentzug. Also deutlicher kann man das ja nicht zum Ausdruck bringen, was toxischer Liebeskummer ist. Und bei den Leuten, die vom toxischen Liebeskummer betroffen sind, denke ich, diese Leute, die müssen sich wirklich hundertprozentig darüber im Klaren sein, dass sie hier gerade einen Entzug machen und dass diese ganzen Gefühle, all der Kummer, all der Schmerz, all das, was einen schier zerreißt, vom Detox, von der Entgiftung herkommt. Um die Problematik vom toxischen Liebeskummer besser erklären zu können, greife ich jetzt einmal wieder auf meine Zeit als Suchtkrankenhelfer zurück. Und so erklärt man auch heute noch Suchtkranken, die in eine Beratung kommen, wenn du jetzt auf Entzug gehst, dann wird sich ein Loch auftun. Dieses Loch, das hast du vorher mit Alkohol oder mit Drogen, mit was auch immer, gefüllt. Und nun heißt es, dieses Loch wieder zu füllen, damit du nicht wieder rückfällig wirst. Und so sehe ich tatsächlich auch toxischen Liebeskummer. Ja, du bist ja auch auf Entzug und die Droge Partner gibt es nicht mehr. Und dieses Loch, was sich bei dir jetzt auftut, das muss gefüllt werden. Und so wie der Alkoholiker sich nach seiner Droge verzehrt, so verzehrt sich derjenige, der mit toxischen Liebeskummer zu tun hat, nach der Droge toxischer Ex-Partner. Und hier heißt es, nicht im Außen suchen, was man vielleicht vorher immer gemacht hat. Da hat man die Dinge, die man selber nicht meinte zu haben, im Außen gesucht. Die Dinge schlummern in euch. Und es berichten so viele Betroffene, die es geschafft haben, nach einer toxischen Beziehung auszusteigen und sich erst einmal voll und ganz auf sich selber konzentriert haben, wie gut es ihnen gegangen ist. Und wenn es einem dann gelingt, nachdem man einmal die Ursachen erkannt hat, warum es einen so zerreißt und man 24/7 an den Ex oder an die Ex denkt, dann hat man eine Chance. Dann hat man eine Chance, sich mal auf sich selber zu besinnen und mal dahin zu schauen, was man vielleicht vorher nicht so wahrhaben wollte. Nämlich, dass man tatsächlich auch Liebe für sich selber in sich trägt. Man muss nicht um Liebe fighten und kämpfen, wie es uns vielleicht früher eingetrichtert worden ist. Du bist nicht gut genug, du musst immer um Liebe kämpfen. Wenn wir uns auf uns selbst konzentrieren, dann haben wir die Chance zu erkennen, dass all diese Kämpfe plötzlich unnötig und komplett bedeutungslos geworden sind, weil wir haben das tatsächlich in uns. Und in dem Moment, wo wir anfangen, uns auf uns selbst zu konzentrieren, auf unsere Hobbys, auf unsere Vorlieben, auf das, was uns ausmacht, auf unsere Würde, auf unseren Selbstrespekt, dann haben wir eine Chance, da rauszukommen. Und wenn nun der toxische Liebeskummer überhaupt nicht aufhört und nach einem Jahr oder nach noch mehr Zeit immer noch vorhanden ist, dann könnten wir es tatsächlich, genau wie bei den Alkoholikern, mit einer Suchtverlagerung zu tun haben. Was ist unter Suchtverlagerung zu verstehen? Nun, bei den Alkoholikern spricht man dann von Suchtverlagerung, wenn sie dann von der Flasche zwar irgendwann weg sind, aber dann zu einer Ersatzdroge greifen. Und so kann man es immer wieder beobachten, dass trockene Alkoholiker jetzt plötzlich zum Glimmstängel greifen. Es gibt ja so viele Süchte. Es gibt die Arbeitssucht, es gibt die Liebessucht, die Sucht nach Anerkennung. Die Liste ist unendlich lang. Ja, und so wie ein Alkoholiker jetzt tatsächlich eventuell zu einer Ersatzdroge greift, damit er nicht mehr zur Flasche greifen muss, so kann nun bei jemandem, der toxischen Liebeskummer hat, tatsächlich auch eine Suchtverlagerung entstehen. Und diese Suchtverlagerung bedeutet nun für denjenigen, der vorher dem toxischen Liebeskummer anheimgefallen ist, dass er sich nun für eine neue Sucht entscheidet, und zwar die Liebessucht. Und diese Suchtverlagerung bedeutet nun bei demjenigen, der vorher den toxischen Liebeskummer hatte und der 24/7 immer an die Ex oder an den Ex gedacht hat. Zwar wird dann immer noch an den Ex oder an die Ex gedacht, aber das sind jetzt nur noch Platzhalter, Stellvertreter. Und im Vordergrund steht jetzt eigentlich ja die Liebessucht und die Leidenssucht. Leben bedeutet Leiden und das Leben ist kein Ponyhof und ja, und ich leide so sehr. Das kann tatsächlich mit unserer Erziehung zu tun haben. Wenn uns von klein auf an erzählt wird, aus dir wird doch sowieso nichts, ja, dann leiden wir ja schon in diesem Moment unter unseren Eltern. Und damit ist der Grundstein gelegt für den Glaubenssatz, Leben ist Leiden. Und so der eine oder andere kennt vielleicht auch so dieses Gefühl, ja Mensch, also in dem Moment, wo ich leide, da fühle ich mich dann auch richtig lebendig. Leben ist Leiden und wenn ich den Schmerz in meiner Brust spüre, dann lebe ich. Also ein sehr gutes Beispiel ist das Buch von Goethe, Die Leiden des jungen Werther. Also da wird so richtig schön beschrieben, in welchem Leid der junge Werther schwelgt und ja, wie lebendig er sich in dem Moment auch fühlt. Und dann ist der nächste Schritt, also wenn Leben doch Leiden ist, dann ist der nächste Schritt zu der Überzeugung, dass nun Liebe auch Leiden bedeutet, doch naheliegend. Und so schwelgt man in diesem Leid und sagt, oh, es tut so weh. Und in diesem Moment fühle ich mich tatsächlich lebendig. Hier ist ein Glaubensgrundsatz, ein Glaubenssatz geprägt worden, der uns tatsächlich unser Leben lang begleitet. Und das ist ja auch das, was uns Hollywood immer wieder in diesen Liebesfilm einflüstert, dass Liebe Hollywood-like richtig wehtun muss. Zuerst ist es zwar ein riesen Feuerwerk der Emotionen, aber dann wird ja immer wieder gezeigt in diesen Hollywood-Filmen, dann tut es so richtig weh. Ja, und das ist dann irgendwo das, was uns so gezeigt wird. Ne? Liebe ist ein Feuerwerk und ein Auf und ein Ab und man weiß überhaupt nicht, was als nächstes passiert. Und es ist einfach nur tragisch. Eine gute Liebe dagegen, die sieht doch ganz anders aus. Eine gute Liebe ist ein breiter, ruhiger Strom, in dem ich nicht dauernd Angst haben muss, was passiert als nächstes. Ein großer, ruhiger Strom, in dem ich mich sicher und geborgen fühle. Ich denke, wir sollten wirklich einmal darauf schauen, wenn man jetzt diesen toxischen Liebeskummer jetzt so unendlich lange schon hat, woher dieser Liebeskummer kommt und ob nicht tatsächlich eine Suchtverlagerung eingetreten ist. Und wenn du das für dich erkannt hast, besinn dich auf dich selbst, besinn dich auf deine Hobbys, besinn dich auf deine Werte. Du kannst Fehler haben, du kannst in der Vergangenheit vieles falsch gemacht haben. Das gehört zum Menschsein dazu. Wir brauchen uns deswegen nicht geißeln. In dem Moment, wo wir in der Lage sind, uns zu entschuldigen, bei uns selber zu verzeihen, dass wir so viel Mist gebaut haben, dass wir uns haben missbrauchen lassen. Und in dem Moment, wo wir auch in der Lage sind, uns bei anderen zu entschuldigen, sind wir garantiert keine Narzissten, weil Narzissten entschuldigen sich nicht. Und damit hast du jetzt eine reelle Chance, einmal auf deine Glaubenssätze zu schauen, mit denen du bisher durchs Leben gelaufen bist. Bisher bist du vielleicht durchs Leben gelaufen und hast dir eingeredet, ich bin nicht gut genug, ich muss stets um Liebe kämpfen, ich muss mir Liebe verdienen. Liebe muss wehtun. Ja, das ganze Leben muss irgendwie wehtun. Und wenn du diese mal erkannt hast, dann hast du die Chance, damit zu brechen und einen Cut reinzuhauen und einen Neuanfang zu machen. Wenn dich die Gedanken wieder einmal übermannen, dann gib ihnen nicht die Macht, die sie gern über dich hätten, sondern mach es so, dass du die Gedanken ziehen lässt. Du siehst, die Gedanken, versuch nicht, die Gedanken zu verbannen. Das wird nicht funktionieren. Es wird ja manchmal auch gesagt, das ist wie so ein Stoppschild, sich vor Augen halten. Nein, stopp, ich will diese Gedanken nicht. Das wird nicht funktionieren, weil es ist wie mit dem rosa Elefanten. Wenn ich dir jetzt sage, denk mal nicht an einen rosa Elefanten, ja, an was denkst du? An einen rosa Elefanten. Und genauso ist es auch mit diesen Gedanken an den toxischen Ex. Wenn du sie kommen siehst, dann versuch sie nicht zu verbannen, sondern versuch sie einfach ziehen zu lassen. Und sag, okay, ihr seid da, ich nehme euch zur Kenntnis, aber ich fokussiere mich jetzt auf etwas anderes. So, ihr Lieben, das war jetzt ein Ausflug in die Welt vom toxischen Liebeskummer. Und warum toxischer Liebeskummer manchmal so lange anhält und warum man so lange drin stecken bleibt. Ich hoffe, ich habe euch ein wenig helfen können. Macht's gut, bis zum nächsten Mal. Ciao.
Wie lange der Liebeskummer andauert, das hängt nicht nur von den äußeren Faktoren ab, ja, keine Ahnung, wohnt ihr noch zusammen, habt ihr gemeinsam Kinder, sondern es hängt vor allem davon ab, was du mit dem Liebeskummer tust. Denn es gibt bestimmte Phasen, die du durchläufst während der Trennungsphase. Und es gibt die Menschen, die weigern sich, das alles zu erfahren. Und dann gibt es die Menschen, die sagen, nein, ich bin mir von diesen Phasen bewusst, ich nehme sie an und entsprechend geht es auch schneller. Und deswegen möchte ich heute in diesem Video das 5-Phasen-Modell, so viel haben wir, vorstellen. Es ist ein sehr grobes Modell, nur um einen kleinen Eindruck zu bekommen, in welchen Phasen wir uns befinden, wenn wir uns gerade in einer Trennung befinden. Und ich kann schon mal so viel sagen, du kannst wirklich viel dazu beitragen. Ich hatte Klienten, die haben nach 20 Jahren haben sie immer noch ihrer Ex-Frau oder Ex-Ehemann nachgetrauert. Und das nur, weil sie bestimmte Phasen nicht überwunden haben, weil sie nicht da durchgegangen sind, weil sie es ignoriert haben, weil sie sich abgelenkt haben mit einem neuen Partner und zack, nach 20 Jahren kommt dann auf einmal der Schmerz nochmal hoch oder die verflossene Liebe wird einfach wieder präsent. Und damit dir das nicht passiert, damit du wirklich den Liebeskummer überwindest, sodass du mit neuem, frischen Blick und Energie in eine neue Beziehung gehen kannst. Diese neue Beziehung muss nicht unbedingt ein neuer Mensch sein, aber es kann auch sein, dass du eine neue Beziehung führst mit deinem Ex, aber dann auf einem anderen Niveau, in einer anderen Energie. Und das soll das Ziel sein. Deshalb fangen wir jetzt an, die 5 Phasen des Liebeskummers mal grob darzustellen. Wie gesagt, es kann sich variieren, aber dann hast du schon mal so eine grobe Übersicht. Die erste Phase nennt sich die Leugnungsphase. Wenn es passiert, oh Gott, ich kenne das noch so gut, als ich erfahren habe, dass mein Ex-Freund nicht in mich verliebt oder nicht mehr verliebt ist, das war in dem Moment, mein ganzer Körper erstarrte, erfror. Und es war so, was habe ich da gerade gehört? Ich kann das doch nicht glauben. Und ich weiß noch, ich bin nach Hause gegangen und ich lag auf dem Bett wie so ein Stern und habe dann erstmal eine Stunde da gelegen und die Wand angestarrt und dachte so, das kann es doch nicht sein. Das war meine Leugnungsstrategie oder Leugnungsphase. Es gibt aber auch die Menschen, die sich direkt wieder in eine neue Beziehung werfen, die direkt sich ablenken mit Party, Drogen, Spielen, Arbeit, Sex. Es gibt mehrere Strategien, um sich abzulenken. Aber all das gehört zur sogenannten Leugnungsphase. Denn wenn wir eine Trennung erfahren, dann ist das wirklich ein krasser Entzug an Botenstoffe, an Endorphinen. Und das muss der Körper natürlich erstmal handeln können. Und weil das so heftig ist, natürlich sind wir geneigt, um zu sagen, nein, das kann es nicht sein, das will ich nicht wahrhaben. Deswegen, es ist völlig normal, es ist völlig okay. Die Frage ist nur, möchtest du weiter nicht ablenken oder sagst du jetzt, nein Jutta, ich bin stark genug und ich gehe jetzt die nächsten Phasen an, denn ich weiß, sie sind wichtig, um loszulassen. Und die zweite Phase ist die Trauerphase. Und das ist eine sehr essentielle Phase. Und ich weiß, wir haben häufig Angst vor der Trauer, weil sie macht uns traurig. Wir haben Angst, dass wir vielleicht ein Loch fallen und aus das wir nie wieder herauskommen. Aber das Ding ist, wir können Trauer auf eine sehr effektive Art und Weise begegnen. Häufig kennen wir Trauer nur, indem wir uns selbst bemitleiden, indem wir uns noch mehr Geschichten erzählen, die Trauer noch mehr und noch mehr und noch mehr produziert. Ja, also die sorgt dafür, dass noch mehr Trauer entsteht. Und am Ende denken wir so, hä, das endet ja nie. Wie du aber Trauer effektiv fühlen kannst, sodass die Trauerphase auch, ich sag mal, schnell vorbeigeht, ist, indem du die Trauer annimmst. Nicht indem du die Geschichten erzählst, sondern indem du es körperlich fühlst. Und ich habe hierzu schon so oft Videos gemacht, wo ich immer wieder sage, geh in den Körper rein, gucke, wo ist das Gefühl, wie verhält es sich, ist es groß, ist es klein, ja, geh mal spielerisch einfach mit dieser körperlichen Empfindung um und sehe die Trauer als dein Freund und dein Partner, denn die Trauer will dir nichts Böses. Die Trauer will dir einfach nur zeigen, es ist schade. Das ist, was die Trauer dir sagen möchte, es ist schade. Und Trauer ist nicht nur hart und schwierig und entsprechend negativ, sondern Trauer hat auch eine Süße, denn Trauer ist oder wenn du traurig bist, dann bist du ganz tief mit dir verbunden. Das ist ein Zustand, wo du dir ganz nah bist. Und das ist etwas, das darfst du auch sehen, damit du die Trauer annehmen kannst, damit du die Trauer wertschätzen kannst. Und wenn Trauer, wie jede andere Gefühle auch, sich gesehen fühlen und wertgeschätzt fühlen, dann lösen sie sich auf. Deswegen lade ich dich ein, wirklich hier es zu erlauben, im Englischen embracen, ja, zu verkörpern. Wenn du da Unterstützung haben möchtest, jemanden, der den Raum hält, weil du musst es nicht alleine machen. Ich habe ein sogenanntes Notfalltelefon eingerichtet, dass wenn du gerade an sehr starken Liebeskummer leidest oder einfach gerade nicht weißt, wie komme ich aus diesen Phasen raus, dann ruf mich gerne an. Den Link hier drunter für eine Terminvereinbarung findest du unter diesem Video. So, wir kommen zur dritten Phase. Und das ist die Verhandlungsphase. Hier versuchen wir häufig, unseren Ex zurückzugewinnen oder bestimmte Standpunkte klarzumachen. Hier ist es wirklich so, dass unser Ego sich jetzt aufbeult und sagt, ich muss mich beweisen, ich muss ihn zurückzugewinnen. Jetzt klingelt es an der Tür. Ich muss mich beweisen, ich muss ihn zurückgewinnen, damit ich sehe, dass ich liebenswert bin. Und ich möchte dich hier einladen, hier wirklich ganz vorsichtig zu sein. Denn häufig ist es so, dass wir bestimmte Handlungen, Entscheidungen treffen, die zur Handlung führen, die wir später bereuen, die uns vielleicht später sogar peinlich ist, weil du bist gerade noch in einem sehr zerbrechlichen und sehr emotionalen Zustand und in diesem Zustand bist du nicht mit deiner Weisheit, mit deiner Intuition verbunden. Damit du aus der Weisheit und aus der Intuition handelst, solltest du erst deine Gefühle oder die Emotionen gefühlt haben. Du solltest neutral, du solltest ruhig sein, du solltest bei dir sein, zentriert. Und das bitte nicht, deswegen diese Verhandlungsphase, bitte nicht übereilt angehen. Ja, erlebe erstmal die Trauer. Natürlich darfst du dann auch in die Konfrontation gehen und bestimmte Dinge nachfragen, ja, wenn dir zum Beispiel Dinge noch offen sind. Ja, denn häufig ist es so, wir können auch erst dann abschließen, wenn wir Antworten erhalten haben. In meinem Kurs, den Ex-Partner loslassen, habe ich auch eine Hypnose mit eingefügt, ein ganzes Kapitel, wo es darum geht, zu erfahren, warum der Ex-Partner so gehandelt hat, wie er gehandelt hat. Denn manchmal finden wir gar nicht mehr den Zugang zu unseren Ex-Partnern, um die Antworten zu bekommen. Aber deine höhere Weisheit, deine Intelligenz, deine Intuition weiß es. Du weißt es eigentlich. Nur du bist gerade vernebelt von Emotionen und den Verstandsgedanken. Ist nun mal so, wir sind Menschen. Und in dieser geführten Hypnose, dort bekommst du die Antworten auf noch offene Fragen. So, und dann gibt es die nächste Phase und das ist die sogenannte Wutphase. Wut ist auch eine sehr interessante Energie, denn sie wird sehr häufig verleugnet und verpönt, von wegen, das will ich nicht fühlen, aber die Wut ist am Ende auch gut zu dir, so wie jede andere Emotion auch. Wut zeigt dir, so geht es nicht weiter. Meine Grenzen wurden hier überschritten. Vielleicht hast du deine eigenen Grenzen überschritten, vielleicht hast du deinen Ex-Partner getan, vielleicht haben es auch andere Menschen getan in dieser Phase. Und auch hier lade ich dich ein, die Wut wirklich körperlich zu fühlen, anzunehmen, zu schätzen und nicht mit ihr Gedankenspielchen zu machen. Ja, dass wir uns entweder dagegen wehren, dass wir wütend sind und so drücken, oder indem wir aus dieser Wut irgendwie Rachaktionen spinnen, ja, wegen, das mache ich jetzt, das tue ich ihm an oder ich mache ihn eifersüchtig oder was weiß ich. Das sorgt auch wieder für Komplikationen und bringt dich und auch euch als Paar niemals weiter. Deshalb, gehe hier wirklich ganz weise und effektiv durch. In dem Kurs Ex-Partner loslassen gibt es
Liebeskummer, das ist ein ziemlich ätzender Zustand, den, glaube ich, fast alle Menschen auf die eine oder andere Art und Weise kennen. Und ganz egal, ob du im Moment gerade Liebeskummer hast oder ob du dich vor Liebeskummer fürchtest und deshalb vielleicht Dinge tust, die du eigentlich gar nicht tun willst. Du solltest dir diese Folge unbedingt anhören. Hallo und herzlich willkommen zu einer neuen Folge vom Mission Liebe Podcast. Ich bin Nina Deißler und seit weit über 20 Jahren unterstütze ich Menschen auf dem Weg zur Liebe, habe schon sehr, sehr viele Bücher darüber geschrieben, unter anderem zum Beispiel dieses hier, Für immer verliebt, mit meinem Mann Claudius zusammen. Und ja, für immer verliebt, das wären wir wahrscheinlich alle gerne. Doch leider bringt die Liebe und vor allen Dingen die Beziehung es so mit sich, dass man auf dem Weg den einen oder anderen Kummer, den Liebeskummer, erfährt. Und wie man damit am besten umgeht und was du dagegen tun kannst, darum soll es heute gehen. Ich gebe dir heute ein paar wirklich gute Strategien und ein paar Einsichten, was Liebeskummer eigentlich ist, wie er entsteht und wie du nach Möglichkeit auch sehr schnell darüber hinwegkommst. Eines der wichtigsten Dinge, die es über Liebeskummer zu wissen gibt, und zwar ganz egal, ob es jetzt der Liebeskummer ist, weil eine Beziehung zu Ende gegangen ist oder ob es der Liebeskummer ist, weil eine Beziehung zum Beispiel einfach nicht entsteht oder entstanden ist oder weil der Mensch, mit dem du zusammen bist, nicht das tut, was er soll oder Dinge tut, die er nicht tun soll oder sie. Das fällt alles im Grunde in eine ähnliche Kategorie, denn wir spüren einen Schmerz, weil die Realität nicht so ist, wie wir sie gerne hätten. Und das klingt jetzt erstmal ein bisschen banal, aber das Verrückte ist, dass Liebeskummer sich damit tatsächlich auf vielen Ebenen, nicht auf allen, fast kaum unterscheidet von jeglichem anderen Kummer oder Schmerz, den wir haben. Der meiste Schmerz, den wir spüren, also dieser seelische Schmerz, der entsteht, wenn die Realität anders ist, als wir sie uns wünschen, als wir sie erwartet haben, als wir zum Beispiel auch glauben, sie verdient zu haben. Und das ist auch der Moment, an dem Liebeskummer ganz besonders schlimm wird. Und da ist auch direkt eine wichtige Einsicht, denn wir können uns Liebe leider nicht verdienen. Wir haben das irgendwann vielleicht in der Kindheit mal so gelernt, sprich missverstanden, dass wir uns Liebe verdienen mussten und demnach auch Liebe verdienen können. Aber du könntest falscher kaum liegen, denn letztlich ist es so, dass Liebe etwas ist, was wir nicht verdienen können. Wir können uns Lob verdienen, ja? Wertschätzung können wir uns verdienen, wir können uns Anerkennung verdienen, wir können uns vielleicht auch Aufmerksamkeit verdienen. Das sind alles Dinge, die wir verdienen können. Aber ob ein anderer Mensch wirklich das Gefühl von Liebe für uns empfindet, das hat nichts mit Verdienen, mit Leistung zu tun. Und nichtsdestotrotz ist es ein Mechanismus, den ganz viele Menschen lange eingeübt haben, dass sie quasi irgendwann gelernt haben, wenn ich ganz viel leiste, dann bekomme ich Zuwendung, dann bekomme ich Aufmerksamkeit, dann bekomme ich vielleicht eine Belohnung und dann habe ich das Gefühl, dass ich wertgeschätzt werde oder dass meine Eltern mir wirklich das schenken, was ich mir wünsche, nämlich Aufmerksamkeit und positive Zuwendung, während sie das im Alltag vielleicht nicht so tun. Und das ist leider etwas, das den meisten Menschen so geht und wir dürfen das nicht verwechseln. Aufmerksamkeit ist nicht dasselbe wie Liebe. Ich kenne es zum Beispiel aus meiner eigenen Kindheit genauso, dass meine Eltern waren, als ich Kind und auch Jugendliche war, wahnsinnig beschäftigt. Die haben unfassbar viel gearbeitet. Ja, die hatten entsprechende Themen, aber die haben eben wahnsinnig viel gearbeitet. Und ich habe mich da sehr oft auch übersehen gefühlt oder nicht wertgeschätzt gefühlt und hätte da gerne auch mehr Aufmerksamkeit gehabt und habe dann eben auch sehr häufig mich eben ungeliebt gefühlt. Und das ist das Wichtige an der Liebe, dass wir das, was wir fühlen, ob wir uns also geliebt fühlen oder nicht geliebt fühlen, das hat kaum was damit zu tun, was der andere tut und was der andere fühlt, sondern was wir fühlen. Ich habe zum Beispiel im Nachhinein erfahren, dass meine Eltern aus Liebe so wahnsinnig viel gearbeitet haben, weil in ihrer Welt wäre es das Allerschlimmste gewesen, wenn sie dieses Haus nicht hätten halten können, wenn sie uns nicht ein schönes Zuhause hätten bieten können oder im Sommer mit uns in den Urlaub zu fahren. Das war für sie total wichtig und dass sie dafür oft im Alltag wenig Aufmerksamkeit hatten, an den Wochenenden sehr müde waren, das haben sie einfach in Kauf genommen und sie wären nie darauf gekommen, dass wir Kinder uns nicht ausreichend geliebt fühlen, weil in ihrer Welt haben sie absolut alles getan und vielleicht war es in deiner Familie ähnlich, aber vielleicht, auch das habe ich mal von jemandem gehört, ein Satz, der bei mir auch wirklich tief gefallen ist, dass jemand gesagt hat, in meiner Familie war so wenig Liebe, war so wenig liebevolles Miteinander, ist so wenig aufeinander geachtet worden. Ganz im Gegenteil, es war immer Streit und Stress und Druck und Kummer und sich anschreien und alles Mögliche. Und weißt du, wenn du so wenig Liebe erfährst, dann lernst du irgendwann, sie vom Messer zu lecken. Und da sind wir wieder genau an der Stelle, wo Liebeskummer anfängt. Liebeskummer fängt nämlich nicht an der Stelle, wo dein Partner oder deine Partnerin dich verlässt oder der Wunschpartner dich nicht erhört, sondern Liebeskummer fängt an der Stelle an, wo du deine Parameter setzt für die Liebe, für die Beziehung. Also typisches Beispiel, wenn du gelernt hast, Liebe für Leistung. Und da kommt jemand, der findet dich toll und der ist bereit, sich auf dich einzulassen und du musst nicht leisten. Dann kann es passieren, dass du diesen Menschen furchtbar langweilig findest, unattraktiv findest. Weil dein Herz fängt an höher zu schlagen, wenn jemand kommt, bei dem du arbeiten musst. Wenn jemand kommt, der sagt, hey, ja, ich finde dich schon gut, aber halt nicht als Partnerin oder als Partner. Und du denkst, okay, die Nuss knackig. Ja, weil du schon seit deiner Kindheit oder Jugend genau solche Situationen kennst und weil du süchtig danach bist, dich anzustrengen oder komplizierte Dinge zu lösen oder jemanden zu retten. Auch das habe ich schon ganz oft erlebt, dass es Menschen gibt, die ganz besonders starke Gefühle entwickeln, wenn da jemand ist, der nicht klarkommt, ja, der sich beständig in Schwierigkeiten bringt oder der in einer unglücklichen Beziehung ist. Und das ist häufig, also wenn man sich das anguckt, ich habe mit über 10.000 Menschen gearbeitet in diesen fast 25 Jahren, in denen ich Coaching und Training und Beratung und so weiter für Singles mache. Und immer wieder, wenn ich mit Menschen spreche, die Liebeskummer haben, es ist fast niemand, der zu mir kommt, der nicht vorher schon für einen Moment diesen Gedanken hatte, ob das so eine schlaue Idee ist, mich auf diese Person einzulassen? Und sie haben es trotzdem getan. Und ganz, ganz häufig sind es genau diese Dinge. Wir sind süchtig danach, arbeiten zu müssen für die positive Aufmerksamkeit der Person. Wir sind süchtig nach Menschen, die wir aus irgendetwas retten können. Wir sind süchtig danach, auch zum Beispiel nicht gut genug zu sein. Und das Verrückte ist, und ich weiß, dass es für viele Menschen verrückt klingt, aber ich habe es wirklich hunderte, tausende Male gesehen, ist, dass wir ganz häufig, vielleicht nicht zu 100%, aber in unfassbar vielen Fällen, das bekommen, was wir glauben, das bekommen, was wir erwarten, das bekommen, was wir fürchten. Und wir selber sind das Vorbild dafür, wie andere Menschen uns behandeln sollen. Menschen, die wahnsinnige Angst haben vor Ablehnung, sind die Menschen, die sich in ihrem Inneren selber am allermeisten ablehnen. Und was erwartest du, wenn du dich selbst ablehnst, wenn du dich selbst nicht toll findest, wenn du selbst nicht davon überzeugt bist, dass du ein guter Partner sein könntest? Was erwartest du, was andere Menschen da draußen über dich denken? Wie willst du die davon überzeugen, dass du eine tolle Partnerin oder ein toller Partner bist, dass du ein guter Fang bist, whatever, dass man dich wertschätzend und liebevoll behandeln soll, wenn du selber das nicht mal glaubst? Und auch da ist oft der Anfang von Liebeskummer. Liebeskummer kommt nicht von der anderen Person. Liebeskummer kommt eigentlich immer daher, dass wir jemanden finden, auf den wir unsere Wünsche, unsere Bedürfnisse und unsere Träume projizieren und einfach hoffen, dass dieser Mensch auf irgendeine Art und Weise, durch Geduld, durch Arbeit, durch Leistung, durch Liebsein, durch Dasein, durch was auch immer, sich so entwickelt, wie wir es uns erträumen, wie wir es uns wünschen und wie wir hoffen. Und je länger dieser Prozess andauert, je länger wir Wünsche und Hoffnungen und Träume auf und in diesen Menschen und in diese Beziehung oder Nichtbeziehung projizieren und je länger wir dran hängen, umso schlimmer wird es, weil wir in uns diesen Impuls haben, dass wir sagen, ich habe jetzt schon so viel gemacht. Ich habe schon so lange gewartet. Ich habe schon so viel an der Beziehung gearbeitet. Ich habe schon so viel investiert. Ich habe so viel getan. Ich habe so lange gewartet. Es ist schon so lang. Ich kann jetzt nicht aufgeben. Ich kann jetzt nicht loslassen, weil was ist denn, wenn nur noch so viel fehlt? Das ist das eine, dass wir immer denken, weil wir schon so viel investiert haben, können wir nicht loslassen, weil dann wäre all das umsonst. Und das andere ist, dass wir wollen uns auch einfach nicht geschlagen geben. Wir wollen, irgendwann geht es darum, und das würden wir nie vor uns selber zugeben, vor anderen schon gar nicht, dass wir dieses Spiel gewinnen wollen, dass wir diesen Menschen gewinnen wollen. Und last but not least, auch bei ganz vielen Menschen, dass sie denken, da draußen ist auch kein anderer. Und das Verrückte ist, dass dieser Gedanke häufig von da kommt, dass wir einfach diesen einen Menschen so lange schon im Fokus haben, so lange schon glorifizieren, dass wir gar nicht mitkriegen, wie viele andere Menschen da draußen tatsächlich sind. Und wir können uns wunderbar einreden, dass da draußen kein anderer ist. Dabei sind da draußen eine Menge tolle Menschen, die du bereits in den letzten Wochen, Monaten oder Jahren einfach übersehen hast, einfach verpasst hast, die vielleicht genau nach dir suchen, während du immer auf diese eine Person fokussiert bist, die entweder keine Beziehung mit dir möchte oder mit der du eine Beziehung hast, die, sei ganz ehrlich, nicht so ist, wie du sie haben wolltest. Nicht so war, wie du sie haben wolltest. Und dann gibt es immer diesen Rest Hoffnung. Manchmal ist es, weil die Beziehung gut angefangen hat, dass wir immer hoffen, es wird wieder so wie am Anfang, wird es nicht. Oder dass wir das Potenzial in einer Person sehen und dass wir einfach darauf warten, dass diese Person endlich so wird, wie wir glauben, dass sie werden kann. Und was uns dann so lange daran hält, ist, dass wir ja dann auch in Gedanken das schon so feiern, ne? Dass wir schon diesen Gedanken haben, ja, irgendwann wird der Tag kommen, wo er oder sie mir danken wird dafür, dass ich da war, dass ich ausgehalten habe, dass ich all diese Dinge getan habe, dass ich diese Opfer gebracht habe. Der wird nicht kommen. Der wird nicht kommen. Und schau, ja, eine Beziehung ist Arbeit. Gar keine Frage. Ja, man muss bestimmte Dinge tun, wenn eine Beziehung funktionieren soll. Weiß ich auch. Habe ich hier ausreichend beschrieben. In Für immer verliebt. Aber wie sage ich so schön, wir können für die Liebe kämpfen. Ja, wenn Liebe da ist. Wir können aber nicht um Liebe kämpfen. Schon gar nicht, wenn der Kampf nur von einer Seite aus geführt wird. Wenn nur du die oder derjenige bist, der sich darum bemüht. Und am Ende geht es eigentlich gar nicht darum, dass man den Menschen loslassen muss, um den es da geht, sondern eigentlich genügt es, die Vorstellung loszulassen. Also diese Idee loszulassen, die in deinem Kopf ist. Diese Idee von, wie dieser Mensch sich verändern wird, wenn du endlich alles richtig gemacht hast. Wie diese Beziehung sein wird, wenn der andere doch nur endlich verstehen würde. Ja, wenn du es nur endlich gut genug erklärt oder dir genug verdient hast, das ist es. Du musst diese Wahnvorstellung in deinem Kopf aufgeben. Und das fällt ganz, ganz vielen Menschen schwer, das weiß ich. Ja, aber zu merken, ich habe mir da was vorgemacht. Ja, also diese Ehrlichkeit sich selber gegenüber zu besitzen. Und das ist im Grunde dann auch wieder gelebte Selbstliebe. Diese Ehrlichkeit zu besitzen, zu sagen, hey, eigentlich habe ich da mir was vorgemacht. Ich habe mir so eine fixe Idee gebaut, dass ich mit diesem Menschen und nur mit diesem Menschen eine fantastische Beziehung und eine fantastische Zukunft haben kann. Aber das war die ganze Zeit nur in meinem Kopf. Und zwar nur in meinem Kopf. Offensichtlich nicht im Kopf der anderen Person. Und es geht nicht um diesen Menschen, sondern es geht darum zu merken, da ist einmal dieser Mensch, wie er ist. Genauso wie er oder sie ist. Und da ist auf der anderen Seite dieser Mensch, den ich in diesem Menschen gesehen habe. Da ist dieses Potenzial, das ich in diesem Menschen gesehen habe. Da sind die Dinge, die ich gehofft habe, die ich mit diesem Menschen tun und teilen werde. Aber all diese Dinge haben nichts mit diesem Menschen zu tun. Nichts, gar nichts, sondern die waren die ganze Zeit nur in meinem Kopf. Und es lohnt sich, wenn du dieses Gefühl verbessern möchtest, dieses schlechte Gefühl, wenn du diesen Liebeskummer überwinden möchtest, loslassen möchtest. Vielleicht möchtest du ja gar nicht. Vielleicht möchtest du dich auch noch die nächsten Tage, Wochen, Monate, vielleicht Jahre in Selbstmitleid wälzen. Kannst du ja machen. Kannst sagen, es war so schön. Nein, war es eben nicht. Ja, und du kannst dich die nächsten Tage, Wochen, Monate in Selbstmitleid wälzen und weiterhin dein Missverständnis und deine Wahnvorstellung ehren und zelebrieren. Oder du kannst erkennen, dass du nichts verloren hast, außer diesen Ideen, die du hattest, die eben jetzt nicht wahr werden. Dass das im Grunde alles ist, was passiert ist. Dass der andere Mensch nicht so geworden ist, wie du es erwartet hast, wie du es gehofft hast, wie du glaubst, dass du es dir verdient hast. Dass der andere Mensch nicht so ist, wie du dachtest, dass er ist. Und dass das im Grunde alles ist, was passiert ist. Ja, wenn du denkst, ich bin so verletzt worden. Nein, du bist enttäuscht worden. Du hast vorher sehr, sehr viel wahrscheinlich gemacht, um eine Erwartung zu haben. Und du bist enttäuscht worden. Und was du tun kannst, ist, schreib dir auf, was du gehofft hast. Und dann schreib dir auf, was tatsächlich der Fall ist. Und mach das, ja, am besten teilst du ein Blatt in 2 Spalten und sagst, was habe ich gedacht, gehofft, erwartet, wie dieser Mensch sich entwickelt und wie diese Beziehung sein wird. Und was ist denn tatsächlich, was ist denn wirklich passiert? Was war denn wirklich da? Ich kenne Fälle, wo Menschen 2, 3, 4 Jahre lang an einer Person hingen und gehofft haben, dass aus ihnen beiden ein Paar wird, obwohl einer von beiden von Anfang an gesagt hat, du, ich finde dich nur nett, wir können gerne Freunde sein. Ja, und auf diesem Ohr war die Person offensichtlich taub. Also was ist wirklich passiert? Du hast nicht diesen Menschen verloren. Du hast nur du kannst jetzt deine Ideen, die du mit diesem Menschen hast, nicht mehr umsetzen. Und das ist das eine. Das nächste ist, dass du dir einen neuen Plan überlegen musst. Und ganz ehrlich, wir hassen das. Wir hassen es, uns neue Pläne überlegen zu müssen. Das ist furchtbar. Der alte Plan war so schön. Und glaub mir, das kenne ich auch zur Genüge. Wir lieben es, wenn wir uns neue Ideen ausdenken dürfen, aber wir hassen es, wenn wir neue Pläne machen müssen, weil die alten nicht funktioniert haben. Und das ist das Nächste, was du machen kannst. Mach einen neuen Plan. Und ich weiß, dass der erstmal keinen Spaß macht. Ich weiß das, ich kenne das sehr gut. Gott, ich erinnere mich so gut daran. Ich habe es gehasst, aber es hilft. Mach einen neuen Plan. Und dieser neue Plan muss kein Masterplan sein, sondern fang an, Dinge aufzuschreiben, die du jetzt tun kannst. Mit der Zeit, die du jetzt hast, mit der Freiheit, die du jetzt hast. Und wenn du schon immer mal in irgendein völlig exotisches Land reisen wolltest, dann ist jetzt der beste Zeitpunkt. Dann mach genau das. Übrigens, es gibt noch, ich glaube, momentan einen allerletzten Platz für meine Retreat-Reise nach Bali. Möchte ich an dieser Stelle ganz kurz loswerden. Und
Hey guys, today I'm going to teach you how to get over someone that you're obsessed with. And trust me, I'm the right person for that because I've been obsessed with so many people over the course of my life, and I had to learn how to get over these obsessions because I did it so many times. And I found out 4 ways in which someone can get over their obsession. So first and foremost is switching from a dopamine system, and I'm going to explain what that means, to a serotonin oxytocin system. So when you have a dopaminergic personality, you're more prone to being obsessed with people. You're having like an obsessive personality because dopamine is the hormone that makes you not satisfied with what you currently have. And
Ever wondered why self-esteem issues have become more prevalent nowadays compared to before? Even the most confident and self-assured of us can feel down and worn out by dating fatigue and hookup culture, leading us to wonder, is the modern dating and convenience culture we live in now destroying your self-esteem? Let's take a look. This video intends to let you know you're not alone in this, and we hope the comments in this video will further validate each other's experiences. Getting ghosted. Imagine this.
I first began practicing witchcraft 8 years ago, and my journey to this point has been a long, confusing, and often difficult one. Usually leading down paths that left me with more questions than answers, especially in the beginning. When I first began practicing witchcraft, I felt as though I had discovered some underground library filled with generations of secret knowledge. But there was a catch. It seemed as though most every book I could get my hands on was written backwards, missing pages, or simply in some other language that I had no way of deciphering. And at first, it was all just very overwhelming. I didn't know where to begin, I didn't know what to trust, and I'm almost sure that if you're here watching this video now, you probably feel pretty similar. So today, I'm gonna do my best to try to help you feel at least a little bit less overwhelmed while I share some of the things that I wish I had known before I began practicing. Now, I do believe this will be a multi-part series, so keep your eyes peeled for more to come, but without further ado, let's jump into part 1. You won't know everything right away, or honestly ever, and it's okay to take your time. One of the first things that I really struggled with when I began my path was feeling like I needed to know everything. Every time I turned a page or opened a new door, I was flooded with information. I was constantly coming across new terms I didn't understand or concepts I had no knowledge of, used in discussions so nonchalantly that I felt like I was behind for not knowing them, even though I was just beginning. There were so many paths I could take, and I felt like I needed to know exactly what I wanted to do the moment I began. And as I'm sure many of you know very well by now, it was all just overwhelming. But the further down my path I got, the more I realized that it's okay to not know everything right away, and it's okay to just kind of slowly accumulate knowledge as you go. One thing I wish I had started doing sooner, and honestly wish I kept up with now, was to take notes on anything and everything, even if I didn't quite understand what I was writing about in the moment. Once I started doing this, I felt a lot better about going forward down whatever path I was currently exploring, because even if I didn't quite know exactly how or why something was the way it was in the moment, when I would go back sometime later and review what I had written, I was always surprised by how much I now understood in comparison. And I no longer felt so rushed to learn this flood of information because I realized that, for the most part, it would come to me eventually. There's really nothing that you need to know first or last, and honestly, I'm still learning things every single day, even though I've been practicing for quite some time now. That's kind of the beauty of witchcraft. It's something that's a lifelong journey, and it's something that you will continue to build on and grow your knowledge on for the remainder of your life. It's okay to spend months or years just trying to get a handle on the basics. Take your time and do what feels right to you. Besides, one day you'll be able to sit down and look back and see how far you've come in however much time it's taken and be blown away. Sometimes we accumulate knowledge in the most unexpected ways, and honestly, the best way to do so is just to spend time and practice. There's no rush or time limit whatsoever. It takes time, but that's okay. This isn't something that you're gonna learn in a day, even though I know sometimes it is very exciting and you wish you could, but it's a lifelong journey. The second thing that I wish I had known before I began practicing was that everybody's path is different, and what works for one witch may not work for another. And this is something that can be especially challenging with the age of social media. I know you'll come on here and you'll see all of us online witches sharing our practices and what works for us, but it may not speak to you, it may not feel right in your own practice. When I was first starting out, I felt like there was only one way of doing things. The magical practice was something cut and dry in a way, like early mathematics. Only later did I come to understand that it's more of an art form than anything else, as everybody's practice is as unique to them as a painting they would make. Witchcraft is a very personal journey, and it's something that, once again, does take time to sort out. So it's okay if you are trying things and they don't quite feel right. Just try something new. I know for myself, ceremonial magic or anything with a great deal of production didn't work for me. It's not something that feels comfortable in my craft, but it's a completely different story when I'm working with nature and folk magic. Like I said, everybody's path is different, and your path is going to be uniquely your own. Now, of course, this isn't something that just happens overnight. Your craft will slowly develop over time as you try out different paths and find your footing. Just like any skill, it takes time to develop a signature. When just starting out, you don't need anything fancy or really anything at all. Really, the big secret of everything is that magic comes from within you. The tools and extra ingredients are simply a means of directing or enhancing the energy that you're putting into a spell. They aren't the whole thing. And this kind of goes the other way around. If you're just using tools and just using ingredients, you're not necessarily going to create successful spell work because it relies really solely on you. I know when I first began, I felt like I needed to have all these tools, all these fancy doodads, and just everything before I could even begin practicing. But honestly, nowadays, I simply only work with herbs and natural things that I can get from the outdoors, and sometimes not even anything at all. Of course, everybody's path is different. Those more drawn to ceremonial magic tend to use tools heavily in their practice, and personally, even though my practice is very folk-based and not ceremonial at all, I still use tools in my craft, though they tend to be more practical than solely magical. But depending on your path, sometimes you may not need tools at all, and it's okay to spend some time just feeling everything out and seeing what works for you. You don't need anything fancy, you don't need anything expensive, and even if you do choose to use tools in your practice, you don't have to go all out. Some of my most prized finds came from flea markets or thrift shops, and don't knock a good dollar store candle until you try it. You can also make a lot of tools directly from nature for free, and personally, when possible, that's my preference, at least within my own craft. There tends to be this misconception that things need to be just so to work, and that's really not the case. I'll say it again, your practice is your own, so only buy and use what you feel is necessary within it. Next, and this is a big one, it's okay to mess up, and it's okay if spells don't work. This is something that I was very scared of in the beginning, messing up. It felt like such a huge, scary thing. I thought the world would collapse and all of these bad things could happen. I was so scared of making just the smallest mistake without even knowing that it kept me from beginning my practice for a really long time. But honestly, most of the time, the worst that's gonna happen is the spell's just not gonna pan out, and that's okay. Now, of course, there are exceptions. I will touch on this in part 2, but I would recommend, if working with spirits and deities and things that are a little higher up there, that's something that I would not jump into as a beginner, and I'll explain why then. But for the most part, in basic spell work, messing up using a color or correspondence that isn't quite right typically isn't going to end in absolute catastrophe, and it's okay. Most of the time in our daily lives, we're doing spell work without even realizing it. It's the intention that we put behind it that really does all the power. And think about how many times you've put intention into things. All those coincidences in life and those moments that you hoped for so desperately and they came to be. That's spell work at its finest. And of course, if a spell doesn't pan out the first time, that's completely okay. Try it again. It's okay. Don't let that define this experience, and don't let that define that this spell is impossible. Just try it again. Really, with beginner spell work, that's the worst that's going to happen, and it shouldn't stop you from beginning your practice. It's pretty difficult to mess up and cause anything worse than just nothing, so don't worry and loosen up a bit. Next, don't be too hard on yourself about practicing every single day. I know this is something that I've recommended before, and I see it recommended a lot, and I do recommend this for those of you who are really heavily into your practice and getting excited. It certainly is beneficial for those of you with the time or energy to do so to have little easy practices that keep you grounded to your path, such as meditating or spending some time out in nature. But that's it. Don't ever feel obligated to do a full-blown spell every day of the week or even within any sort of time frame. Spell work should be something that comes about comfortably and organically. Witchcraft is not an area of your life that you should stress over. It's something that should make you feel happy and good and enhance your life, not become an extra struggle within it. So don't be too hard on yourself about making a point to practice every day if it's too hard. I do think it's important to practice every once in a while to keep your magic muscles strong, if you will, but it's not something that you need to ever stress over. And lastly, this is something I get asked all the time, and something that I was really confused about in the beginning too, but you do not need to be a Wiccan to be a witch. There is a huge misconception that in order to be a witch, you have to be a Wiccan. Wicca is heavily based in magic, and it is a faith that strongly relies on it, or well, goes around it really. But you can be of any faith and any background and still practice magic, whether that be Christian, any form of pagan, or even, honestly, an atheist. You don't need to believe in a higher power in order to practice magic in your daily life, nor do you have to work with deities in order to practice magic. Once again, witchcraft and magic is a very personal thing, as is religion, and whatever you choose to or not to follow works perfectly well in a magical practice. As with everything, your path is going to be uniquely your own, and you don't have to follow anything that you don't believe or feel compelled to follow. Alrighty guys, I hope this video helped you out. I feel a little bit like I stepped back in time, but I've been wanting to get back into making some witchcraft series videos, and I thought, why not start right here? So I hope you enjoyed part 1. Come back for part 2. It will be out in the weeks to follow. If you want to help support this channel, I would really appreciate it if you went and checked out my Patreon. There I share some art and some other things and just have a general good time with you guys over there. And once again, thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you soon. Bye.
Hello! On this channel we talk about independent spirituality and folk magic for free spirits. My name is Esther, and in today's video I am going to share some tips and tricks for people who are starting out with their magical practice, and also for people who are maybe in the broom closet, and like how can you deal with that. Of course, that everything that I'm gonna say in this video comes from my personal experience and my personal background, so take everything as just advice. It is just advice. See what makes sense for you, what you could actually apply in your reality, and take it from there, okay? Magic has been part of my family since generations, and I think I know a thing or two that I can share with others. Now, today's video is going to be divided into 3 parts. Tips for closeted witches, tips for beginners, and some extra discussions in the end about grimoires and altars. So make sure to stick around all the way to the end, okay? There's gonna be a lot of information in this video, and you don't want to miss out on that. So let's dive right in. The first thing that I would advise you do if you are like just starting out, you are still living with your parents and everything, ask yourself why you want to become a witch. Why? What is the motivation behind it? If you just want to look cool to other people, or maybe you think that the witchy content creators are swimming in money, well, think again, girlfriend. Motivation is what moves the world. And in my case, magic was a pathway to reconnecting with myself and finding my personal power again. If you just want to put up a show to other people, chances are that you're not gonna stick around for long with your practice, because being a witch involves a lot of studying. It involves a lot of trial and error. A witchcraft practice does not look pretty. It doesn't look Instagrammable. And it's not about that. Anyway, let's dive into the tips for the closeted witches. I have like my notes here, so please bear with me while I am taking a look at it. The first thing I would advise you do is to get plants. Why? Because plants, first of all, they are great spiritual allies. Even if at the beginning we don't really understand and we don't really realize that they are a spiritual ally, they are. We think we are just using ingredients and part of the plant, but in fact, the spirit of that plant is coming over and operating with us in our spell work. You know, nobody's going to be suspicious of you because all of a sudden you want to have rosemary at home, okay? And maybe you all want some basil. I don't know, maybe you want roses. I really like roses. They're a great ally, in my opinion. So versatile. And you can start not only using parts of the plant in your spell work, but you can also start connecting with that plant meditation. Later on in your practice, when you start reaching out to spirits or deities, whatever you prefer, you will see how important meditation is. And by the way, if you want me to film a video about meditation, please let me know in the comments below, because I am planning on making a video about it, but it would be good to know if people are interested in seeing it, so let me know in the comments. Meditation, I see it as putting on Luna Lovegood's glasses, you know, from Harry Potter, and when she's wearing those glasses, she gets to see stuff. Yeah, meditation is that, in my opinion. Meditation is the gateway that will take you to the spiritual realm. So it is very important that we work on meditation so we can understand and get to know our own energy. And then we start getting to know the energy of our personal spiritual team, ancestors, you know, familiars, spirits that are our partners naturally and effortlessly. It is fundamental to know your energy, to know your thought pattern, like how you think, how your mind works, before we start trying to interact with other spirits, with entities in general. And on top of that, just like with plants, nobody will be suspicious if all of a sudden you want to meditate, because meditation is what? As old as walking forwards, you know? People have always meditated since ages, millennia ago, since thousands of years. Nobody's going to find it weird if you become interested in meditation all of a sudden. They probably will think it's kind of nice. Oh, that's good for you. You go meditate, yeah. Another very good thing that you can do that will raise no suspicion at all is to go to something that I call power spots. Power spots are natural or built little places that have very particular and strong energies. For example, woods, forests, rivers, lakes, crossroads, mountains, parks. It is important for you to get to feel different energies of different places, especially when it comes to natural environments. It is so refreshing, you know, to go meditate at the woods, to go meditate by the lake, by the river. It is so purifying, in my opinion. And also, like, most of the magic that you will be involved with is local.
Oh, that sounds
so
wonderful.
You gotta know
I also
what
see
is your
hatred,
local
torture, and
environment
bigotry.
and what is available to you in your surroundings. The native plants, the native rocks and maybe minerals, maybe crystals, the water, maybe there's a specific water composition in your area because of some mineral of the land, and then you have a very specific and particular combination in the water that you could use in a certain way in your spell work. All of this requires getting to know your area very well and seeing what is available to you. Another power spot that I almost forgot to mention, of course, cemeteries and graveyards. That's like the witch's amusement park almost. It is nice to go, you know, get to know your neighbors, get to know the people who used to live in your area, the heroes, the criminals, the children, the elders, the artists. What were these people about? Discover them. Except for cemeteries and graveyards, all the other power spots that I have mentioned, nobody is going to be suspicious of you because you want to hang out at the park by yourself. You can say, oh, I just need some me time, you know, I'm gonna read. Nobody will find that weird. But if you are going to woods, mountains, or forests, I do recommend you have somebody to go with you. It can be a little bit dangerous to go by yourself. You never know. You might find some weird living person who could harm you. It could happen for real. When you are going to those more distant places, it's a good idea to have somebody to tag along, just for safety. But then it would be better if it is a like-minded person. Well, if not, see what you can do in your surroundings where it's safe for you to go alone, and yeah, take a look around and see what you can come up with as a power spot location. Those places are also great for little rituals, you know, maybe at home you don't really have the space, maybe there's too many people living with you and you don't have enough privacy or enough silence. You can just go to a lake, to a river, to the woods, to the park, and find a little quiet place that nobody's really passing through a lot, and you could do your workings there. Another thing that is very useful for the closeted witch are sigils, because sigils can be inbuilt with so much power, with so much intention, and like nobody's going to know what that is. If somebody asks, you can say, oh, it's just some drawing I came up with, it's just some design. that came to my mind. Nobody will care, nobody will understand, and it's gonna be like that. Also, sigils are very easy to hide, so people don't necessarily need to come across your sigils. If you prefer, you can just hide them. You can tuck them in your phone case. You can tuck them behind a picture frame, behind a mirror, in your shoes. You can embroider sigils. So it's super discreet, it's super subtle, and most of the time, other people won't even notice that. Another great thing is charging items. And you can charge literally anything with the intention that you have in mind. You can charge jewelry for protection, for power, for like personal power, for confidence, for victory, for success. You can charge things that you are going to eat or drink, like your meal, your food in general, your tea, your coffee. Something that I like to do when I make tea is to sprinkle some cinnamon on top of it, and as I stir, I put some intention into it. This is something that you can do in silence. Set that intention into your beverage, into your food, and nobody around you will realize. Nobody will notice. Another thing that is great and super
So today we're going to tackle one of the topics that I get asked about a lot. Again, this month I'm trying to focus on answering questions from my community and uplifting voices from my community. So if you have any questions that you would like me to talk about, definitely leave them down below and I'll try to get to them. Just like Wednesday when we talked about kind of group rituals, the pros and cons of that, today I wanted to talk about turning witchcraft into a lifestyle. Because a lot of people are asking me, like, how do I do this on a daily basis? How do I incorporate this into my life? I think it's such a beautiful and valid question. Like, I love that people are so excited about witchcraft that they want to interact with it on a daily basis. That's awesome, because same. The other day I was scrolling through TikTok, as one does, just doom scrolling, it's fine. And I came across like that one trend where it's like, name a surprisingly deep quote from an unsuspected source. And this girl was talking about this quote from Practical Magic, and as she was explaining it, I remembered that quote, I guess, from like when I watched it, and also like super agreed with her. So I'm gonna share that quote with you. I am super sorry, I do not remember the users. It was at like 3 a.m., like mid, like doom scrolling. So it was a like bright light of sunshine, and if anyone knows this creator, please like let me know, and I will be like, hello, you're wonderful. But the quote is from one of the ants, and it goes, and this is what comes from dabbling. I mean, you can't practice witchcraft while you look down your nose at it. And this like made me pause and think, because it's something that I feel like I struggle with a lot in my practice, and that is like being present and like making witchcraft like very real and visceral. Sometimes I do like get into my own head about stuff where I'm just like, how could this possibly work? Like, I'm lighting a candle and covering it with herbs, and like there are times where I doubt my own power and my own magic, and I feel I definitely fall into this trap of like doubting myself, or just really being like, okay, well, how much could this actually be helping, because my life still sucks and blah blah blah. And that's really not the purpose of witchcraft. And I think this wanting to interact with witchcraft on a daily basis is part of people wanting to walk the walk and talk the talk, or make witchcraft, their spirituality, a lifestyle, because spirituality is one of those things that gives us a great compass as to how to steer our lives. To address the question now, after ranting for 25 minutes, how do you do this daily? My number one piece of advice is to break it down and start adding one like little magical thing per week. So like literally one step at a time. So whether that is a commitment to getting up and meditating in the morning, or making tea, or whatever that looks like for you. For me, it's usually a morning routine because I'm a morning person. Much like anything else, much like any other lifestyle changes you are going to be making in your life, whether that is like a new like diet, whether you're going like plant-based or vegan or something like that, it's really hard just to switch over. But if you start making little switches, it becomes way more manageable, way more sustainable. And yes, that is kind of a non-magical piece of advice. I'm about to follow it up with another non-magical piece of advice, and that is to be okay with failure. Something that I struggle with a lot. I'm super not cool with failing. Like for me in my life, failure has never been an option. Like my parents were not okay if I failed, and if I failed, it was like the end of the world. So now I'm like unlearning how to be okay with failure, which is really, really hard. I'm not saying that it's gonna be easy, but don't beat yourself up if you forget to do something. Like, your deities aren't going to be mad at you if you forget to light their candle in the morning, or you need to do it at a different time, or if you are super tired and you can't do your yoga practice in the morning. Super cool. You got to listen to your body, right? So be okay with failure, with failure to perform a task, with failure to do, something correctly. It's gonna be okay. That's how we learn and how we move forward, and it's something that I have to remind myself of constantly. So I'm right there with you, don't worry about it. Now that we've got kind of some of the non-witchy metaphysical advice out of the way, which is just like start small and be okay with, not doing things perfectly the first time, the witchy piece of advice I have is to surrender to it. And I know that this is super hard. It's super hard for me. I am a total control freak. But I find that when I allow myself to let go of everything else that I have to think about, because I have a million things jumbling around up here that I have to worry about like all the time, I find that when I can get to a point, which is not super frequently, that I can release some of that and just kind of be present in my working, true magic really does happen. So even if that is like kind of your first step of like just practicing being mindful, practicing being present in a magical space on a daily basis, or on a weekly basis, whatever works for you, I find that my biggest struggle and the biggest thing that I've had to overcome in terms of, incorporating witchcraft into my daily life is to be present and, like I said in the beginning, stop looking down my nose at magic, just accepting it for what it is and surrendering to the universe, allowing the universe to guide me in the direction that I need to go. So putting my trust in something other than myself is super hard for me, but it's something that through witchcraft and through my practice has become slightly easier. One of the biggest things that I have personally found has helped me in terms of aligning witchcraft with my daily life is to align my life personally with the rhythms of the planet. So again, as always, it's going to be a work in progress no matter what, but I found really a lot of peace and a lot of like understanding of my emotions through tracking moon phases and celebrating the moon phases, and allowing my energy to be really expansive during the waxing phase and really introspective during the waning phase, to set my intentions during the full moon, or excuse me, the new moon, and then manifesting them during the full moon. I promise I have done witchcraft before. I do know the lunar cycle. So the lunar phase is really fantastic for me in terms of like keeping track of my goals, making sure I'm on track for the vision that I have for my life. But in general, on a bigger scale, I find that aligning myself with the seasons, resting when it's dark and cold, and then being more expansive, more energetic during the summertime like it is now, I just have found that in the past 2 years of kind of living my life that way, I've felt a little bit more stable and a little bit more cognizant of why I might be a little bit more down or a little bit more sluggish in the winter, instead of like beating myself up over just like acknowledging my natural like rhythms of my body, right? Another thing that I found really helped me to kind of embrace witchcraft as a lifestyle, as well as a spirituality, is just being like unapologetic about loving witchy stuff. For a really long time, I felt like I had to hide this, not only from my friends, but like my family, of course, like definitely my family, but like also my partners and stuff. And that was really, really hard for me because this is like a huge part of my, well, it's like the main part of my personality, let's be honest. But I found that like when I was like unapologetic about it and I started claiming that title, I'm like, yeah, I'm a witch. Like it just really, it helped me give myself permission, I guess, to interact with this stuff on a daily basis. So once I felt a little bit more free to be my witchy self to its fullest, I definitely felt like I was seeking out witchcraft more. I felt more comfortable learning about it, posting about it, and then by proxy, I guess, or because of that, I started like connecting with witchier people and began to make witchy friends. So by doing so, I really started to interact with witchcraft and my spirituality on a daily basis. And by starting to practice it on a daily basis, I found the things that were a little bit more sustainable for me and my practice, and the things that definitely weren't. So hopefully I can save you guys a little bit of grief by saying to like break it down into small things, because I definitely dove in with like 2 feet, got super overwhelmed, and almost like quit doing witchcraft altogether. So please avoid that if possible. And the last thing that I really wanted to touch on is the fact that it's okay not to have a daily practice. I know this is a goal for a lot of people. I feel like I've talked about it like a couple times this year, but I do want to like acknowledge the fact that the times that we are living in currently are very chaotic, and it is okay to prioritize yourself, your mental health, and your like physical well-being before your spirituality. Ultimately, your spirituality is here to guide you through this life, this wonderful conscious existence on this beautiful planet. Please prioritize yourselves over your spirituality. If you find that your spirituality is adding a stress to your life, it's okay to back down and kind of like step back from it, for sure. The last thing that I wanted to leave you guys with is another quote from one of my favorite movies, Lord of the Rings. And it's something that I find that I repeat to myself a lot, especially if I'm feeling down about not practicing enough or anything like that. So the quote is, "All that we have to decide is what to do with the time that is given to us." Which was said by a wonderful wizard named Gandalf. But I really love that quote because it helps me put things into perspective. So we have this one lifetime where we can experience as much magic as possible if that is what we want, or prioritize other things. So it's up to you as to what you decide to prioritize in your life, in your spiritual practice. And if living that lifestyle of the witch, bringing magic into everyday circumstances is something that really calls to you, you have my full support, and I wish you all the best. So I will leave you guys with that, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!
As a witch on the internet, I get asked a lot of questions, and I love answering as many of them as I can, but I feel like some of them really need their own dedicated video. And today, I wanted to talk about one of the most enduring questions I have ever been asked. How do I take myself from a beginner practitioner to someone more experienced? And today's video is going to be all about it. So for anyone who's new here, hello, my name is Hearth. Thank you so much for choosing this video, and if you've been here for a long time, thank you so much for coming back. I always appreciate it. Now, if we were to look at the world of witchcraft, I think it looks a lot like a pyramid. You get a lot of people at the bottom section of this pyramid that are beginners to witchcraft. They're just starting out, perhaps they were inspired by a movie or a TV show, perhaps they found a book in a charity shop, or they found a book in, I don't know, Urban Outfitters or something, and it inspired them to want to start learning. Above them are people who are a little bit more experienced in their practice. Perhaps they've spent a couple of weeks doing it, they've realised that this is something that they do want to start working on long term, and then above them are the more advanced practitioners still, those who've probably been doing it for about a year. And you'll notice as we go up the pyramid, the numbers are getting less and less and less. And at the very top of that pyramid are the people that have been practicing for the majority of their lives, those that have been practicing for 50, 60 years and are very experienced in their magical tradition. The numbers start dwindling because as people begin their journey, they realise maybe this takes a little bit more effort than they were expecting, or perhaps they become stagnant in their practice and they decide that it just isn't for them. But there's a lot of people who struggle to make the leap from being a beginner practitioner to being more advanced. And if they get stuck in this period of time for too long, they can often feel like they aren't good enough in their practice, that witchcraft is too expensive, that they don't understand how to progress. And so I wanted to cover a few options today that I think could be really, really useful and massively helped me make that leap from being a beginner to the craft to being someone that is at least a little bit more experienced. And I still don't consider myself to be adept in this practice at all. I'm totally still learning. So the first piece of advice that I can give is to make sure that your foundational practices are effective. I have found this to be one of the main reasons why people stop practicing witchcraft. They feel like all of a sudden their magic just stops manifesting, and so they go, well, clearly this isn't for me, or clearly this isn't real, I'm just not going to do it anymore. But having a really good foundational practice means that if we go through a slump, if we're struggling at any point, if we're changing up our style of practice, we still have a foundation to build up on. It's the equivalent of building a house on a stable foundation versus building it in a bog. One of them is going to sink and crumble a lot quicker than the other. And one thing that I've commonly found to happen is that when people are really passionate about something at the very, very start, they're very excited, they've got a lot of energy for it, or they have a lot of desperation for something to manifest, it'll manifest pretty easily with very little experience and skill because you're putting a lot of energy into it. Even if you don't understand how or why, you're still doing it. But then once you progress a little bit further in your magical practice and maybe that urgent need for a response isn't there, but you want to practice something, or perhaps that initial desire to practice is gone and now you want to develop it further, all of a sudden your workings just stop manifesting. A lot of people can take this as a sign that witchcraft isn't real, that magic doesn't work, or that it simply isn't for them, but really it's just that you're not in a high energy situation anymore. If you're not in a high energy situation, then you need to be adding that energy through other means. And that's where our foundational practices come in. Ideally, I would recommend learning some kind of mind calming or meditation technique, visualization, or some alternative such as writing down your desired intentions, singing it, speaking it, drawing a picture, whatever that might be, centering and grounding, energy sensing, and energy manipulation. These are what I would consider the core practices that we can then build up on as time goes on. Once we have these practices in place and we are practicing them again and again and again, then it means that when we are struggling with energy, we have low energy, we maybe aren't feeling 100%, or perhaps we're doing workings where it isn't a high energy working, it's something where we can be a little bit more calm in that situation, we are still going to be able to manifest results. It essentially stops you from having this really, really high at the start of your magical practice and then crashing as soon as you don't have a high energy situation. It's going to make everything a lot more balanced, a lot easier, and it's going to make your practice so much more efficient in the long run. Now, the second piece of advice that I can give is to practice. Now, this might seem so obvious, but I've met a lot of people who want the outcome of practicing witchcraft without actually doing any of the work. Now, I don't like saying it, but I do think that some people aren't necessarily cut out for witchcraft. That's not to say that they aren't able to do it if they choose to. It's that a lot of people come into witchcraft expecting it to be a quick fix for all of life's problems, and they aren't willing to put in any of the time and effort. And ultimately, if you aren't willing to give the energy to it, you're never going to get a response back out of it, especially not in the long run. It is very much about putting the time in, making sure that you're learning your foundational practices, but then also learning a little bit of history of witchcraft from around the world, maybe learning a little bit about the witch trials and why they're still significant. Maybe it's about learning deities or how to work with spirits. Maybe it's learning about the plants that you're connecting with. Witchcraft is very much a craft. It's something that we're always learning and developing, and in order to do that, you actually have to be part of it. Now, by this, I don't mean that you need to be carrying out rituals every single day or several times an hour. What I mean is that you need to be present in your craft. You need to be living it. That could be in the small gestures that you're doing on a daily basis, whether that's saying good morning to your spirits every day or stirring intention into your cup of tea, whether that's choosing herbs specifically while you're cooking that have intention, whether it is doing meditation and mindfulness, whether it's inner work or dream magic, astral projection, or just reading a book, listening to an audiobook. These things keep us grounded and keep us active in our magical practice. I have found the biggest thing that means people fail at the start of their journey is that they go in all guns blazing and then they just stop. And then they come back to it 5-6 months later and they expect to be able to be just as successful as they were 5 or 6 months ago, when they've not interacted with any of their spirits, they've not communed with any of their deities, they've not connected with the land in any way, shape, or form in those last months. And this is where practice kind of becomes stagnant and just fades away, because if you aren't willing to engage in the craft of witchcraft, you're probably looking for magic in the wrong place. Now, I'll be the first one to say that I don't think you need to be doing daily magical practice. If you want to, that's fantastic. But the main thing is to be present in your craft. Whatever it is that you have the ability to do, as long as you are actively engaging in your craft, that's all that really matters. It doesn't have to be something extravagant, but it needs to be something that grounds you into your magical practice. Otherwise, you just end up drifting away from it. And it's one of the main reasons why I see people leave witchcraft, is that they say it is just too much work, I don't want to deal with it, I want what I can get out of it, and I don't want to put anything into it. And sadly, that kind of selfish approach, I think, is becoming more and more common. And it's really important, if you want to work with deities, if you want to work with spirits, to do so respectfully and to not expect something for nothing. And that is what a lot of people tend to miss. Now, the next piece of advice is actually the biggest of them all. So if you're only going to take on one piece of advice, have this be it, because genuinely, this is so, so important. And it's what I recommend to literally everyone, because it is that important. Ask why. This is useful whether you are a beginner, whether you are an experienced practitioner. I don't care if you've been practicing for 2 days or whether you've been practicing for 30 years. It doesn't matter. Asking the whys is so incredibly valuable and you won't regret it. And this is really the main difference between someone who's a beginner and someone who's advanced. So as an example, you're a beginner practitioner and you really want a protection spell. So you have a look on the internet and you find a few spells, but you don't have any items for it. And then you go through a few spell books and you find a couple that you think could work. So you go out and you buy the items that you need to do this working word for word. You follow it, everything is fantastic, it manifests incredible. But this could have cost you a lot of money, and it probably is a style of working that you don't necessarily feel comfortable with. Maybe you wish you could have done things slightly differently, but you don't really know how. Or maybe you would have liked to include your deity in this work, but it actually called for a different deity, and that made you feel a little bit uncomfortable. Whereas a more advanced practitioner maybe wouldn't go to a spell book at all. They'd maybe look through their collection of items, they'd see what they had, and they would put together a spell from scratch. And this is why is probably the most important question in witchcraft, because it allows you to have a deeper understanding of what it is that you're doing. So the next time you're looking through a spell book, try to figure out why. And this is going to help build up a bigger correspondence of ingredients. This is going to help you to understand the world around you just a little bit more, and it means that you can start dismantling spells. And once you start picking apart the reasoning behind a spell, that means you can take all of that dismantled information and you can smush it together in a different way, in a different style of working. Quickly, you'll go from having to rely on spellbooks to never touching them, and it makes such a difference in your magical practice. One thing that I will consistently get asked is, why is witchcraft so expensive? And ultimately, it doesn't have to be expensive, but it's really easy to rack up costs when you're doing spells out of a spellbook, and every single spell contains 5 or 6 different ingredients, crystals, herbs, items, candles that you don't have in your collection, and then every time you're doing a spell, you're having to buy more and more and more things. Whereas really, once you get past the beginner stage, witchcraft is actually really, really affordable because you're using what you have in your collection. How do we actually ask the whys? So I've grabbed this spellbook. This is Candle Burning Rituals by Marie Bruce. It's not my favourite book, but I don't actually have that many spellbooks, so we've just had to go for this one. And I've grabbed this working right here. This is House Blessing Protection Ritual. And let's have a look at the ingredients that are involved. So this is designed to protect your boundaries. You need 4 tea lights, 4 garden lanterns or pumpkins and turnips. You need a pentacle and you need a box of sea salt, and it's carried out on the full moon. Now this working in particular says, this spell will protect the perimeters of your property, helping to keep intruders out. It will also add the positive energies around your home. Charge all 4 tea lights on your pentacle with the powers of protection against all things. Once they are fully empowered, take them outside with the lanterns, matches, and a box of sea salt. Begin in the north or 12 o'clock position of your property, light the candle and place it in the lantern, saying the following. Then you would scatter the salt from that point until you reach the east or 3 o'clock point of your property. Set down the lantern, light the candle, and repeat. Continue to scatter salt until you reach the 6 o'clock point and repeat the process. Do this for the west, and now continue until you are back at the northernmost point. If you have to go through the house at all to do this, then simply scatter a pinch or 2 of salt along the walls. When you reach your starting point, you should be standing within a protective circle of salt, with 4 lanterns lighting the compass points. Leave the candles to burn down. Now, I really like this working. I think it's super well-rounded. I would carry this out myself. But the whole point of doing this is to figure out the whys so we can dismantle it. So as someone who's been doing this for a while, this is how I would break it down. I would look at all of the different ingredients. So you've got 4 tea light candles, specifically 4. Tea light candles are also white, so we're going to figure out why that's significant. Now, the tea light candles are designed to represent the 4 elemental directions, so north, south, east, and west. So the 4 is to represent the 4 compass points. White is also useful as it is a universal colour. It is considered to be representative of all things, and so because of that, it's really useful in all kinds of workings. So if the only colour of candle that you can have is white, then that is going to be really effective. The 4 garden lanterns, or pumpkins and turnips, are typically used for protection of those tea lights, to make sure the wind doesn't blow them out and to make sure that nothing is going to be burned if those tea lights come in contact with it. Specifically though, pumpkins and turnips are protective against spirits, especially when they are carved in faces. Just think of the use of them during Halloween or Samhain. They're very protective in nature, so you could amplify this working further by switching the lantern out for pumpkins or turnips. You then have a pentacle. Now, the pentacle is a symbol of protection. It is unity of all of the elements. It's a unity of balance. And so it allows us to work with it as a powerful symbol to energize situations as well as to offer protection. Many practitioners, it's hit somewhere, including myself, it's wrapped in all of the threads, will use a pentacle and they'll wear it on a daily basis for additional protection. Sea salt is highly protective in nature. It is considered a cleansing agent, and so it is commonly used in protection style workings as a way of marking a border, an edge of a territory, for instance, where nothing unwanted is able to cross that threshold spiritually. Now, I think it is important to mention, they don't say it here, that salt does kill the earth, and so you'll likely find that wherever you've marked that salt down, you'll find that the earth does die in that location. So, once you've been practicing for a while, you might be able to think of an alternative. Perhaps eggshell powder, being highly protective, could be worked with for this property. Perhaps you could use chalk that has been charged with your energy for protection as a way of marking out that space as well. Lots of alternatives here, but that is something that you can learn and develop over time. The full moon is typically used because it is a point of high power, and so that is the kind of power that we're going to be drawing on in this working. It also means that we can effectively work outside without having to use light, especially if it is a nice clear night. Now, once you know all of that reasoning, we can then start figuring out why things are done the way they're done. So the candles are placed on top of the pentacle because it is a symbol of protection and also a symbol of unity and power. All of that energy is coming together, and so you're using it as a way of empowering those objects. If you wanted to, you could take it a step further and put that pentacle inside your house somewhere as a way of offering internal protection as well as those candles working externally. We're working in a clockwise motion because clockwise or deersil is designed to be drawing things in. When you are opening a circle for your ritual purposes, you're doing it in a clockwise motion. When you are walking and delineating the edge of a compass, you are doing it in a clockwise motion. This is really useful for applying something, whereas if we were to be removing something, you would be working anti-clockwise or Widdershins. So just that simple motion is really powerful and potent. And then once you've dismantled all of that, you can say, okay, well, I don't have a pentacle. Well, what was the pentacle used for? The pentacle was so that you could charge all of those candles. You can charge them without requiring the pentacle. You can just do that yourself. Well, I don't have any sea salt. Okay, well, that's fine. If you have children's chalk, you can be charging that and using that instead. You might not even need to use any kind of salt because what the salt is doing is acting as a boundary. If you can delineate that boundary yourself by walking it repeatedly, then that's an alternative to having to use salt. If you don't have turnips, then you can say, okay, well, I don't necessarily need turnips, but I can just use the lanterns, and then maybe I could add a sigil in there that represents protection. And so really quickly, we can start taking things out of that working, changing it up, switching it round. You can have this exact same working be used to protect a smaller circle. Say, for instance, you want to do a ritual with a group. You don't need to protect a large property. Instead, you just need to protect the inner space that that group is going to be working in. Or maybe you only want to do this inside your room. You don't need to be doing this around a big space. You can do this around a little space too. And then really quickly, we can start taking workings that we find in books like this and making them your own. And genuinely, the first step from advancing from a beginner practitioner to a more advanced practitioner is to start adapting the spells. You don't need to start by just going in and making a spell from scratch. But if you start with the whys, and then the next thing is adapting those spells, so if I flick through and find another one that I think could be useful. Let's have a look-see. Okay, so this one here, just up here, is called To Encourage Sweet Dreams. To help call the dream of your choice, you need a dark blue candle, lavender oil, pen and paper. It's suggested to do this during the full moon. As evening falls, take the candle and dress it with lavender oil. Carry the candle to your bedroom. On a slip of paper, write down the type of dream you want to have. Concentrate hard on experiencing that dream. This is known as dream incubation. Now light the candle and put the spell paper next to it. When the candle is almost burned down, your room will be filled with the scent of lavender. Burn the spell paper and get ready for bed. Snuff out the candle, get into bed and wait for your dream to come. Now you might read this and you might go, oh, well, I don't have a dark blue candle. Now dark blue candles are typically used for things that are connected with the subconscious mind. They're also commonly used for communication workings. But if you don't have a dark blue candle, you could switch that out for a white candle. If you are allergic to lavender, then lavender oil is not something that you're going to want to use. So then it's about going through certain books, such as these. So we have reference books, which are going to give you alternatives. So for instance, this is Scott Cunningham's Encyclopedia of Magical Herbs. I swear by this book. I absolutely love it. We then also have Scott Cunningham's Encyclopedia of Crystal, Gem and Metal Magic. That's a different book on the subject. But if you were to go through a book like this and you've gone, okay, well, I can't use lavender because I'm allergic to it. What else can I use? And we're thinking, okay, what rules over dreams? So we're using the full moon during this working. The moon is very connected with psychic work, with dreams, with divination. So maybe you could use an oil that instead connects with the moon, and you have some options. You have lemon balm, you have eucalyptus, gardenia, you have jasmine, myrrh, sandalwood. There's a lot of options there that are associated with the moon. You also have narcissus as an example of something you could be using for sleep. And so you can really start using books like this to expand your magical knowledge further. If, for instance, you know you can't be burning something inside, if you can create a sigil out of the words that you would want to include in that dream writing, you can wear that sigil, draw it on your skin with an eyeliner pen or an eyebrow pen, and it means that you still have that same energy going into that working. And this is what can make the biggest difference, because it can take something that could be very expensive, having to buy new stuff every single day, to something that is really affordable because you're using what you have. You're going to get to the point where you no longer need to rely on a spell book. If you say that you need a confidence working, you're able to pull from your own knowledge that you really like tiger eye for confidence, you really like the colour orange, and so you can create a confidence charm or a necklace. You can wrap it around a candle or place it around a candle holder with an orange candle in the centre that is dressed with confidence oil, that has a sigil carved into the front of it for confidence, and you have tiger eye stone in front of it, and you can say the words that you want to say, you can light that candle, you can burn it down. No spellbook needed. It is incredibly powerful for this purpose. I'm not sure if any of that made sense because I've had to refilm this section about 15 times because I couldn't get my words out. The next piece of advice that I have is to not get stuck in a rut. It is so easy to do it. You find a style of practice that works and you stick with it. But especially if you are a beginner, this can actually be really detrimental. I'll often be asked, as a beginner, how do I know what type of witch I am? And the answer is always that the type of witch you are is designed to fit your practice, not the other way around. The types of witchcraft are not boxes that we need to squish ourselves into. We need to figure out what works best for us first and choose a description for that practice later. If you like the idea of candle magic, then try candle magic, but don't be afraid to also try green witchcraft or lunar witchcraft. Maybe sea witchcraft or elemental magic reaches out to you. It's really important to not get stuck in a little tiny box, because as time goes on, you're going to find it becoming more and more restrictive, especially if it's the only way that you've learned to practice. It would essentially be like learning to ride a bike all over again when you try and do something else, because the techniques are going to be slightly different. So if you can, try not to only carry out one style of practice. As tempting as it is, it means it's so much harder for us to grow beyond that point when we do get stuck in our comfort zone. And another thing to add here is to not just rely on your own energy. Reach out to other things, work with different spirits and deities if you feel comfortable doing so, and even just expand your practice from just working with the mundane thing. Now, I'm the first one to say that I very easily get stuck in ruts. I also work with my own energy a lot, and I like tactile things, but it's important to not rely on them too heavily, because especially if you don't have a lot of energy, or your energy manipulation techniques are not super advanced yet, it's very, very easy to become energetically drained. And when this happens, we don't want to carry out a magical practice. So for instance, if you work with herbs in your magical practice, why not also work with the plant spirits? Build a bond and develop some allies with certain plants of significance that you work with regularly. That way in your magical practice, you're not just working with, say, basil or mugwort. Instead, you're working with the spirit of basil and the spirit of mugwort. It helps elevate your workings, can take some of the energetic pressure off you, and it helps develop your green witchcraft and your green thumb just a little bit more. If you work a lot with candle magic, why not look into working with the fire element, specifically the elementals? These could be a really great benefit to your magical practice. It's not something that you have to do, but it can elevate your practice a little bit further. If you enjoy working with elemental representations during a circle casting, why not also call on the elementals of the 4 directions into workings? Mix and match different elementals for different intentions. If you want something for emotional passion, maybe water and fire. If you want something to keep yourself grounded, then maybe something with the earth element. It's a way of elevating your practice one step above. It doesn't mean that you have to do it all the time, or that your practice is better if you do, but it can be a way of developing your practice and your experience a little bit more to even just test it out and see if you like it. If deities are something that really interests you, have a look into them. See which deities really call out to you and which ones don't. If you want to work with servitors or familiars, have a look into it. It's about taking that step outside and knowing that you are capable. And I think, if anything, that is the biggest piece of advice I can give. Well, maybe not biggest, because I think the figuring out the why is probably the most important, but it's about getting to a point where if something went wrong, you would be able to fix it. And that's what we really need to be working on. Is I don't want anyone to be scared of their magical practice. I don't want anyone to be scared of spirits or deities or doing a working in case something goes wrong. I want you to have the tools to be able to fix it if it does. And I think that is such a massive distinction between a beginner and a more experienced practitioner. If something goes wrong and you're a beginner, you'll often reach out to other practitioners because you don't know what to do. A panicked mindset sets in of, oh no, I've messed this up, I'm in a panic mode now, I don't know what to do. Whereas if you are a more experienced practitioner, if something goes wrong, you might still reach out to people. You might still get a little bit panicked, but ultimately you can take a step back from the situation and you have enough skills to be able to implement them to get yourself out of it. And that is so, so important. So make sure that you know your foundational practices, that you can work with your energy effectively. Make sure you have some protection and shielding techniques. Make sure you know how to cleanse a space, perhaps banish something if necessary. If you have these skills in place, you can then branch out into more advanced styles of practice without the fear holding you back. Because ultimately, going back to that pyramid I spoke about at the very, very start of this video, a lot of the people at the very bottom of that pyramid will fall away because the practice simply isn't for them. Some more people will fall away because they don't want to put the time and energy into it. But a lot of people fall away from that practice because they don't have the self-confidence, because they don't feel as though they have the skills to be able to get themselves out of a bad situation. And so they're so scared of working with spirits, they're so scared of carrying out spells and rituals that they simply don't. And I don't want anyone to feel like they're in that situation. So ideally, it is about asking the whys, understanding why you're doing the things that you're doing, avoiding misinformation, and then coming to a point in your practice where if a spell goes wrong, you know what to do to fix it. So I hope that this was useful. If you have any other tips for advancing your practice from being a beginner to someone more advanced, do let us all know down in the comment section. I certainly would absolutely love to know so that I can give better advice to people in the future, because that's the beauty of witchcraft. That's the beauty of everything, actually, I think, is that ultimately no one knows everything. And if someone claims to know everything, they're lying, because there's absolutely no way that any of us can know everything in witchcraft or in life. It just doesn't happen. We're all growing, we're all learning. Make sure that you forgive yourself if things go wrong. Nobody is perfect. Nobody's journey is the same speed as everyone else's. Some people develop their craft really quickly, other people take decades. That doesn't mean that one person is better than the other. And I think these are all really important takeaways, because there is, especially online, such a status within witchcraft of I'm better than you are. And the reality is that you can find someone who's been practicing for 6 months, who is more experienced, more practiced, and more knowledgeable than someone who's been practicing for 50 years. Everyone is so unique. No one is better than everyone else. We are all just going on this journey. So if you did enjoy this video, please give it a like. It means a lot to me. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to put them down in the comment section. If you've made it to the end of this video, please put some hearts in the comment section and I will try to heart as many of them back as possible. And if you do enjoy the magical content on this channel or in this video, feel free to hit subscribe. I try to post magical content every single week. And with that being said, I hope you're staying safe. I hope you have a marvelous magical day, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!
So today's video, I'm going to get drunk, you know how it is. I'm gonna be happy, do a little dance on your girl. I knew she loved that. Okay. Today's video is going to be about the misconceptions of being a male witch. Ready or not, let's go. So, I am proud to consider myself a male pagan witch, Zen, witchcraft, Wiccan, whatever you want to call it. I don't know. It is a religion, but, you know, all religions are similar. They're very, like, they're very similar. Yeah. Okay. All religions, they have a tendency to only do good, you know, like you have to do good, you can't do bad. But I feel like witchcraft, it's more of like a gray area where if someone is mean to you and rude to you, like you have the right to project that back on themselves too, you know? I mean, you don't have to be nice to every single person. Okay, whatever. It's a good thing to be nice to every single person, you know, because then you're showing them like, that. So the next topic that I want to talk about is like more on the book side, which there are a few books that I recommend. Oh my gosh. Okay, so one of the books that I really like and admire is The Witch's Bag of Tricks. Yeah, it's not focusing for some reason. My camera sucks. Sorry, it's not on autofocus, which is weird. But it's by Melanie Marcus, and it's actually super interesting. It gives you spells and how to avoid negativity and stuff like that. And you get to create your own altar, which that's kind of important because you always need a higher power to like send to, like, and give your energy to the world. And you know, like there's a lot of things that go into it. But on another factor, there's druid power, which this book is actually really good too. It's by Wolf And I actually read this on the plane to New York, and it was such a trip because like the whole plane ride, I was in like this shaman journey, and I was like in the druid, like the druid scenario and in Celtic view. It was just super weird. It was so cool though. Like I'm gonna probably read this again because it was really fun. Like I envisioned being in a forest and like seeing the whole Celtic like view in a different aspect that I've never like could have possibly imagined. So that's a good book. I recommend it. But yeah, I'm out of breath. That's weird. I never get out of breath. I'm pretty healthy, but whoo! Oh, another thing that I made was, hold on, let me get my drink. Get drunk. Was this guy? Isn't he cute? He's a little voodoo doll. I made him out of like an old t-shirt, and I use him as a pincushion, which is probably kind of heartless of me, but hey, I didn't base it off anyone, so you can't blame me for being mean. But yeah, it was just like, I could probably do a DIY like project video on how to make one, but I mean, it's super easy. You just take an old shirt and you cut it up and you sew it. How hard could that be? Okay. but yeah, to all the other like male witches out there, like just know you're not alone, which I thought I was, but then I like kind of did some research on other like, well, the community is really small for male witches and male pagans and male Celtics, you know, like the community is really small, but there is a community for you. Like, you just have to reach out to others, and, you know, it's all about support and like moral support and moral standards. Like, it's all about doing good. And, you know, like, there's so many factors that go into this cauldron of witchcraft in general. And yeah, it's actually something really interesting to live by, because like every day when I wake up in the morning, like, and I think like, oh, I'm magic. Like everything I do has magic capabilities in it. Like whether you're making a cup of coffee or something, you know, like it's all magic. Like life in general is magic, and it's a beautiful life, and I am so grateful to be alive. So thank you, Jesus, thank you. And yes, I believe in Jesus. I believe in any higher power. You know, like it's like all the same middle median. Like it's all a higher power, which Jesus, and like that's my go-to. But hey, does that make me a Christian? Jesus. Okay, I can't talk right now. I'm like three shots in. So cheers. If you're wondering what I'm having, it's grapefruit juice and vodka. It's called a Greyhound, but technically this is like a potion. You know, like this is witchcraft right here. You put a whole bunch of ingredients together to make a concoction in a cauldron or whatever you have, like a cup. That's a cauldron. Boom! Magic. You just got magic-fied. Magic-fied. Is that a word? That's not a word. Okay, I just made one up. Okay, so there's a few things that male witches do in general with all witches. We have these tools or these like things that have the aesthetic of witchery and paganism. So one of them is tea. There's, oh my gosh, it's not focusing. I don't know what's wrong with my camera. But there's tea and herbs, and you could put lavender in tea. You could put other herbs. I can't think right now. But yeah, so there's also incense, which is a necessity for witchcraft, which my mom, she actually doesn't like incense because she says it gives her a headache. And sage too. There's sage also, but that's another like incense burner, so I can't really do that. That's why I stick to candles. Yeah, that's why I stick to candles. I love these long candles, but ow! No, I'm just kidding. It's fake, dude. Did I fool you? Okay, but yeah, these candles are super lit. They're automated. I actually just got them for Christmas, which I'm super grateful for. So thanks, Mom, or thanks, Bam. I love it. Okay. But yeah, and then so for me, I'm more of like a nature-based witch. Like I believe in nature and Mother Nature, and I believe what we're doing to the world is like suffocating our world in a way that like there's not that many forests out there, and that's why I have so many plants in my room, because I believe that without plants we wouldn't exist, and that's true. You know, it is true. But yeah. Okay, I'm gonna take a quick second. I'm gonna go refill. I'll be right back.
A few moments later.
I am happy to be alive. and I'm happy to be nature-based, and I consider myself more of like a Zen witch, which I don't really think that's a thing. I kind of like made it my own thing, but hey, you can too, you know, pick your own aesthetic and like stick by it, and you know, like the world will follow. I'm hoping. I don't know, man. I'm just out here living my life. Happy 2021. But yeah. Thank you for watching. I appreciate it. Go like, go subscribe, go comment, go do whatever you gotta do, or don't. Don't hate, or do. I don't know, but have a good day. Peace.
Greetings and merry meet folks, Symbian here. On this video I want to talk about how to become a witch if you've noticed that you have tendencies towards Wicca and witchcraft and that form of spirituality. I won't call it a religion because it is not a religion per se. It's a spiritual belief system. That's what I'll refer to it as. Now, we all know there are deity-based pagan spiritual belief systems. And there's also belief systems where there is no structure that is wrapped around a deity of sorts or deities of sorts. Atheist witchcraft. Now, I'm on the border on that one. But a spirituality based purely on the elements, earth, air, fire, and water, and nature all around you. Now, without bringing deity into it, when you consider nature, there's a male and a female aspect of nature, which adds to a balance that witchcraft, Wicca needs. Now, it's perfectly alright to use the elements, earth, air, fire, and water, as your structure, including nature, as your structure for your spiritual belief system. What it boils down to is that there's energy that is feeding the plants, feeding you, trying to maintain a balance. To imply that there is a deity that is working all this, that would imply either a masculine or feminine or both in regards to deity structure. Now, that's if you believe that there is a higher intelligence keeping it all together and harmonizing it, balancing it between, let's say, harmony and chaos. Or do you believe that the balance is purely random and harmony and chaos fluctuate randomly? That's viable too. That's a valid observation as well. If there is no control behind it, then we are at the whim of spontaneity. And a witchcraft-based, Wicca-based spirituality that is wrapped around the elements of nature, that is spontaneous in its nature, is probably the closest you are going to get to having a structured, deity-based spirituality and religion, even without calling it Wicca or that type of thing. Basically just a spiritual architecture that is wrapped around a central core of the elements and nature, that balance. If you feel uncomfortable not having any form of deity involved, something that you need to say, yes, the god controls this, or helps keep the balance, or the goddess controls this, or the deity pair help control and balance this out to a great degree, then by all means, it's fair. When we as witches ran from, for me, for my example, when I ran from Christianity to Wicca, it was because I wanted to get away from the, how should I put it, the priesthood core that chooses to lay guilt trips on everybody, to say that there is nothing more than our God. There is nothing that falls under the definitions of paganism. Paganism is thought to be heretic, and heretics were stoned and crucified back in the day. So it depends on what your perspective is. Now, if you're looking for deity-based, that's fine. I'm well-versed on that. My own spirituality is dual-gender deity-based structure on the Celtic architecture. So basically that boils down to meaning that my matron, or my matroness, is the Morrigan. She is a Irish, Scottish, Welsh type blend Celtic goddess, and my patronus, my patron, is her consort by chance, the Dagda. He is a friendly, very well-rounded male divine aspect of deity, and the balance I function with pretty well. I don't base my entire observations and lifestyle upon the core that without deity structure everything will fall apart. That's not true. Science being what it is, which is objective and pretty much influence-free and deity-less, sees a balance happening on the greater. Now, how they can explain functioning a perfect balance of nature and the elements without deity structure, that boggles my mind, and as such, that's why I haven't really let go of the deity-based spirituality core. So when I can figure out why there is a balance and how it is maintained by nature, by the four elements, then I'll feel a lot more comfortable, or not relying so much on a deity-based structure. I like the comfort zone, that believing that deity is helping control us, helping to control the balance between harmony and chaos, and it's not just something random. I like to think that there's some sort of a learning curve and a pattern going on. But for becoming a witch, if you are aware of the elements around you, earth, air, fire, water, and the aspects of nature that you find yourself attuned to or empathic with, you are basically a witch. Because the common person, the common mortal, doesn't have that attunement. But certain people were born with it. Certain people can learn it by studying and then making themselves open to being persuaded by the elements and by nature. There are the technicians that practice it, but they don't feel it at a heart level. And those are what I classify as armchair pagans. They don't get out and do the spirituality that they practice, if you know what I mean. They practice it in their head, rather than going out and into life and embracing nature, embracing the four elements, and working with them. Working with air, fire, water, and earth. Working with the fine balance of nature that makes everything work and connect. Now, being a witch is being aware of all that. When I was younger, after I learnt about witchcraft and had adopted it, I found that I was able to punch holes in the clouds above in skies. I was able to move clouds around, not in bizarre, unethical or unconventional ways, but natural movement of clouds to reposition them. I was able to chatter with the elements and have them respond. I was also able to chatter with nature and have it respond to my chatterings, my communications. A good example for me would be speaking with insects and frogs and squirrels and chipmunks and birds, particularly crows, hence my matron, the Morrigan, crows and ravens. We don't get very many ravens out here, but a few every once in a while. Mainly they are, what we find out here, are the big black crows. Much bigger than what some people call starlings, small little tiny birds that hop around. Anyway, I don't want to ramble, but how to become a witch is simply putting yourself in the position of celebrating and honoring the balance of nature, of exploring and developing a rapport and a connection and a chemistry with the four elements: air, fire, water, and earth. Yeah, I know I keep repeating air, fire, water, earth. Everyone knows what the elements are. Forgive me. So it's simple a matter of allowing an awareness to weave itself within your lifestyle. More of an awareness than somebody who doesn't know anything about it or isn't open to any of it. The fact that you are, and that you have certain empathy towards the elements and nature, it means you're already a witch. It's just one of the things that witches can do is celebrate the seasons. In traditional witchcraft, it's referred to as the Wheel of the Year, the 8 Sabbats, and the working esbats in between. But you don't even have to use that structure for your celebrations and for your actions and for your spells and rituals and that type of thing. Go for it naturally. What feels right? 9 out of 10 times, what feels right is right. So it's all right to ask in your mind and to question, does this feel right? That's proper. But questioning it after you get your answer, that's where a little bit of issues come in, because it means that you're placing doubt on what your eyes and ears and heart and spirit are telling you. And that's like spitting in the face of the thing that controls nature and the elements. So anyway, I'm Symbian. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, comment down below. Share this video with, share a link with this video with your friends. I'm trying to build a foundation here of members on my YouTube channel. Follow me on Instagram, and I don't do Facebook very much. I do have a Facebook page, but I don't check it very often. But other than that, if you have any questions at all, please make them constructive and not negatively oriented, and I'll answer them for you. To contact me, use the About tab on my YouTube channel, and then find my email address and email me with questions and that. I'm more than happy to try and explain things and give the best intuitive answers that I can. So, merry meet, merry part, and merry meet again. Blessed be.
Witchcraft is something that, in theory and in practice, should be equally accessible to both genders. Today I'll be looking at the word witch and how it relates to gender, so I'm sure we'll all have a great time. Hey, I'm Jordan from Grimoire. We'll start first with the fact that witch is a gender-neutral term. Anybody should feel comfortable using it. And that's definitely worth being said, because a lot of Hollywood and pop culture specifically say witch means female user, and warlock, wizard, sorcerer means male user. And that's just simply not true. Anybody can use the word witch, Wicca, or practice Wicca. It just doesn't matter. And this is important to point out because while most modern circles are great at accepting men, I've even seen some people completely oblivious to the fact that men do have a hard time fitting in witchcraft circles. There's several groups that, through varying means, either intentionally or unintentionally, peacefully or aggressively, they separate themselves from men. And later on in the video, I'll definitely discuss why women totally do deserve a spiritual place. But what I'm referencing right now is prejudice towards men, and in some cases even trans women. A whole lot of the power of motherhood, double X chromosome, power type narratives.
Hello, you beautiful human, and welcome or welcome back to your daily pick-me-up message. Before we get into one of these beautiful card decks to have a look at what God, Universe, Spirit needs you to know at this point in time, whenever you happen to watch this right here, right now, there are two massive messages that are personally for you. I tapped into meditation this morning, and Spirit, Universe, your guides, they were very headstrong. Were you need to sit down and you need to film. So here we are. Number one, Your guides, they know you're tired. They see that you're exhausted and you're literally asking for a break. And this exhaustion, like, it's not just, oh yeah, I've been like tired a week. No, like this has been going on for months. For months, you've been in a state of complete uncertainty, full surrender, being surrounded by all these distortions, like literally transmuting a lot for other people, not even like doing anything to like call that in for yourself, right? Like we've been freaking turned every which way and we're battered and bruised. This is how it feels like. We are literally like, no more. And Spirit is hearing you. Spirit is literally like coming to your rescue. Like when I'm telling you, the amount of sirens I heard yesterday alone were insane, and like the message came through again and again and again. Like you're being delivered from the situation that you're currently in, like it's about to stop. No more. And this is also coming from someone that personally was literally having the worst day yesterday. Like by far, like that we're completely isolated in this experience and are like completely on our own. But this was necessary, like we were meant to see the freaking contrast, yeah? And this also, oh my gosh, I cannot believe it's actually coming through. But all the distortion, all the noise, all the what the fuck is my life, like literally these moments were there to build the plot. No, I'm not kidding, this came through just now. The story that you're about to say, like your freaking life is the greatest testimony of what it actually means to walk with God and in faith, and then literally being brought to the brink of like, I cannot do this any longer, and then whoop, everything changes. Full my body chills. Feel it, you know this. It's just so easy to forget it when we're in the freaking rat race, when we're literally taking a step outside of our bubble and be like confronted with all this old earth shit. The contrast couldn't be greater right now. But we're meant to lead the way. So as much as you can like realize that you're not the only tent. Look in this freaking community, like you are here, the people that are being drawn to this channel, like we all have our tents in the forest. And we're about to freaking realize that and meet one another, like soul tribe coming together, having like heart-based collaborations come out of nowhere. We are building new earth and it's here now. But the thing that is important right now, confirmation, like hiccups, perfect. Literally what we're meant to focus on right now is like, what can we do in every single present moment that makes...
Hallo zusammen. Viel Lucky wieder hier. Es ist her, ich weiß, entschuldigt bitte. Vieles passiert seit meinem letzten Video. Ich bin aber tatsächlich heute spontan reingekommen, weil ich nehme immer noch Sertralin. Ich habe jetzt auch ein Jahr lang 50 Milligramm genommen, musste aber seit letztem Monat wieder hochdosieren, weil ich wieder Stimmungsschwankungen hatte, aus bestimmten Gründen. Und ich habe halt keinen Bock, wieder Gewicht zuzulegen. Wie ihr wisst, habe ich durch Sertralin zugenommen. Wobei ich auch sagen muss, und das habe ich auch in einem meiner anderen Videos gesagt, ich habe auch mit Diät etc. auch abgenommen, aber es ist halt irgendwie schwierig. Und jetzt das Video, Leute. Ich habe eine Frage an euch. Bitte, 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 wenn ihr Erfahrungen habt, wenn ihr Erfahrungen habt mit Umstellung von Sertralin auf Fluoxetin, wenn das jemand von euch mal gemacht hat, irgendwie spiegelt meine Brille voll. Wenn ihr das gemacht habt, bitte kommentiert, schreibt mal, weil ich habe jetzt von meinem Arzt Fluoxetin verschrieben bekommen, dass ich Sertralin langsam runterdosieren soll für eine Woche und dann Fluoxetin nehmen soll und das wohl auch als Nebenwirkung die Gewichtsabnahme hat. Habe ich tatsächlich auch schon oft gehört, auch von ein paar von euch. Habe mich aber nie getraut, weil ich keine Lust hatte auf irgendwelche Wechselwirkungen oder was auch immer. Aber ich nehme das Medikament jetzt seit 3 Jahren und ich mache mir auch keine Sorgen. Jetzt beim Aufdosieren von 50 auf 75 hatte ich auch nichts. Ja, ich will es auf jeden Fall versuchen. Meine Psychiaterin hat auf jeden Fall gesagt, dass sie sieht auf jeden Fall, dass Leute, die Sertralin nehmen, zunehmen und sobald sie Fluoxetin bekommen, nehmen sie ab. Und deswegen wollte ich fragen, ob einer von euch diese Erfahrung hat. Und bevor einer von euch fragt, was das ist mein Snagger. Bestes Teil. Mal schön schmecken, guck. Kommt so raus. Ich verlinke euch das mal unten. Könnt ihr mal klicken. Super geil, das Ding. Ja, bitte, also bitte, bitte, wenn ihr Erfahrung habt mit Umstellung von Sertralin auf Fluoxetin, bitte kommentiert und sagt mir mal, was eure Erfahrungen sind. Ich würde gerne mich dann mal auf meine Community verlassen und schauen, was die dazu sagen, was ihr für Erfahrungen habt. Und ja, ich würde euch auf jeden Fall sehr dankbar sein dafür. Mir geht es wieder einigermaßen besser. Ich hatte so mal wieder meine Up and Downs. Und ja, das Leben geht weiter, ne? Corona, was soll ich sagen? Es ist, wie es ist. Aber ich lasse mich trotzdem nicht von meinen Zielen abhalten. Ich reise noch nach wie vor. Halte mich an die Regeln. Wer sich impfen gehen will, kann sich impfen lassen. Wer nicht, nicht. Ich mache kein Blaming oder so. Das ist jedem selbst überlassen. Und ja. Ich hoffe auf jeden Fall, euch geht es allen gut. Ich hoffe, in Zukunft kann ich ein schöneres, längeres Video machen. Aber jetzt einmal die Bitte, wenn ihr Erfahrungen habt, Wechsel von Sertralin auf Fluoxetin, bitte, bitte kommentiert. Ich vertraue euch da auf eure Erfahrungswerte, wenn das der ein oder andere mal gehabt hat. Und ja, ich wünsche euch auf jeden Fall alles Gute und wir sprechen uns dann ganz bald wieder. Euer Filaki. Bye, bye.
So I just wanted to document a little bit of my journey. This is the very first time I've ever started medication. I've had anxiety and depression since I was young, and sometimes it flares up and sometimes it's fine, and it was always livable until I started losing my animals. So I'd say about 6 to 12 months ago. And I started off on Loven, which is also fluoxetine. Day one, I didn't really sleep that well last night, but that could just be me. I haven't been sleeping well lately. Anyway, decided to take it at night because if I had any other side effects, at least they would I could kind of sleep through them. If I felt nauseous, I could curl up and things like that. I didn't have to be sitting at work feeling sick. I lost my taste for coffee this morning. I'm not sure whether that's just me or... Hey guys, so I wanted to just do a little update of day 2. Please forgive the sheep in the background because I am out at my horses at the minute. So I slept well last night. Maybe the first night I was just freaking out over taking the meds. And I had a bit of anxiety through the morning. I find what's helped me with the tiredness, it's only been 2 days, but what I've found to help me has been actually just green tea and a ton of it. So if I'm really tired during the day, I just drink green tea because I find coffee gives me a high and then crashes me real fast. So this is day 4 on the fluoxetine, and I'm still taking it at night, and I think it's working better because it is making me quite sleepy. So I'm sleeping really well, and then I'm okay through the days. Still drinking green tea to get me through the day to wake me up a little bit, which is working nicely. Yeah, the only weird thing is I'm having really weird dreams. Like, they're not weird, they feel really real. Like last night, I was pretty much just making salad rolls. Yep. Felt like something I do in real life. Like, they're not scary dreams, they're just, it's really real. Yeah, but yeah, that's my day 4 update. Okay, so I thought I'd do just like a real life update, just at work. Just going out to the toilet, needed to get some air. This is still day 4. Had a lot of trouble concentrating today, and I think I did a bit too much research on, you know, these side effects and things like that. I just got like an increasing amount of anxiety, and I haven't felt anxiety for a few days, which has actually been really nice. Just little tiny bits, but not, you know, those stressful amounts that nearly feel like a panic attack. Also, I forgot to mention that I can't stop yawning, and didn't really eat properly today, and so every time I yawn I kind of feel like I'm gonna vomit, which is not good. And then I ate like an entire big roll for lunch, and I'm still really hungry, but now I just kind of feel sick because I haven't stopped yawning all afternoon. So this is day 10 on fluoxetine. I've noticed that I'm not nearly as tired as what I was the first week. I'm feeling a bit more alert and not so distracted by everything. I'm sleeping really well, and I find my negative thoughts aren't as often, and I'm feeling a bit more myself again. Not completely, but a bit more. And yeah, so I think it's going really well. Now, in no way am I saying, this is the same day as the last video, by the way, in no way am I saying that the meds have, you know, fully worked yet, because I find I still have highs and lows of moods. So it's just kind of like, you know, playing with my system a little bit, I guess. I'm not constantly down anymore, which is kind of nice, but I still get like a little peak of anxiety here and there, and a little low point here and there, and I still get, you know, my negative thoughts and all that, you know, with depression and stuff. So I just wanted to give you that little update. I didn't do an update for a little bit because on day 12 I had a huge panic attack, and then day 12 through to day 18 my anxiety was just like tipping on edge, and I just felt like anything could set me off. The kind of good news about the panic attack was normally I dissociate in that situation, but instead my mind stayed present, and I felt absolutely terrible, but my psychologist seems to think it was like a good thing because I didn't vacate pretty much. Yeah, but then the past like 4 days I've started to feel myself balance out again and feel my focus come back, and I'm feeling pretty good at the moment, and there's no real side effects. The tiredness did slowly wear off, and I'm no longer on edge with my anxiety. So I've officially been on these tablets for 4 or 5 months, something like that, and I don't get so far down that I'm like suicidal. My moods are more leveled out, I guess, and I'm not stressing as much about things, so that's good. If you're wondering why I look so tired today, I have been up since 5 a.m. and it's now like 4 p.m. So yep. Okay, hey guys, so it has now officially been over 12 months. It is February 4th, 2019. I know it's been a long time since I did an update, but after the first few months, like the side effects kind of stopped, and I started to balance out as you're meant to. And it's a really convenient time for me to make this video because, as anyone who watches my video knows, I'm a massive Gabby Hanna fan. Surprise, surprise. She just released her latest single, Medicate, and I was like, now is the time to release this video. So obviously my hair's gone through a lot of changes. I've gone through a lot of changes in the past 12 months. I am still on the medication daily. So the point in the medication was, I really struggled to talk about this in the first few videos. My psychologist said it wasn't to change who I am, it was to change the pattern of my thinking, because I was in such a depressive thinking, and I'd always be beating on myself pretty much, like not physically, mentally, which is, I think, worse. Sometimes I'd rather take a punch to the face than beat myself mentally. Let's be real, anyone who knows the feeling. Now, obviously, after this amount of time, the side effects have subsided. I have noticed a few little side effects which weren't the most pleasant. Weight gain is one of them. I've gained a lot of weight. I'm not sure if it was the fact that it was the meds doing it, or if it's the fact that I'm not constantly anxious and stressed all the friggin' time. I'm actually relaxed, and when you relax, you gain a little bit of weight. Yeah, so it's been over 12 months. I'm doing really well. I'm really happy on these meds. I still have my highs and lows. They're not nearly as bad as what they were. My lows aren't as life-consuming as they used to be. I'm not suicidal anymore. I'm not having panic attacks over stupid things and thinking about things that I shouldn't be thinking about, that aren't real, making up scenarios in my head and then panicking about them in real life, which is just so stupid if you look at it now. Doing really well, really happy to be on them. And it is the best, most excuse me, I haven't spoken this morning. It's only fucking midday, and I've been sitting on my phone watching videos on Facebook. I think much more reasonably now. I'm a little bit more open in talking about things. This is what I've been doing for 12 months. This is why my videos have been so inconsistent over the past 12 months. I've been really trying to get back into them. The past like 4 or 5 months have been pretty good. I don't even think I posted a video for like quite a few months though. It's been working super duper for me, and I'm so much happier and so much more carefree, which is really nice. Anyways guys, thanks for watching my video, and I hope to see you all at my next video as well. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.
Yo, my name is Oprah and this is my spot. Take a seat and don't whine, cause that ain't a big shot. I was thinking we could make a little tribe, but that only works if y'all subscribe.
Hey Leute, ich habe mir gedacht, ich melde mich mal wieder. Ich sitze hier gerade schön in Stockholm auf so ein paar Hügeln und ja, genießt die Sonne. Ich wollte euch mal ein Update geben. Mein letztes Video war ja, dass ich auf Fluoxetin wechseln möchte, bedingt durch Gewichtszunahme. Und ich muss sagen, ich habe das Medikament nicht gewechselt, aus dem Grund, dass ich einfach Schiss hatte vor erneuten Nebenwirkungen. Und habe mich halt auch mit dem einen oder anderen ausgetauscht. Viele haben gute Erfahrungen damit gemacht und viele halt auch nicht. Deswegen habe ich mir gedacht, okay, ich versuche es jetzt mal mit einer Diät oder was auch immer. Weil bei mir war ja das Problem immer der Heißhunger. Und ich dachte halt, dass das primär durch die Medikamente kommt, was vielleicht auch wahr ist. Aber ja, ich muss mir auch eingestehen, dass ich schon echt viel Süßes gegessen habe, viel Pizza, viele Burger. Klar, das fördert auch die Insulinproduktion und den Heißhunger. Also ich habe das Medikament nicht gewechselt. Ich bin immer noch auf Sertralin. Meine Ärztin war auch eigentlich ziemlich beruhigt, dass ich es doch nicht genommen habe, zumal ich sehr stabil bin. Aber ich habe auch eine erfreuliche Nachricht. Seit 1,5 Monaten bin ich auf der sogenannten Ketogen-Diät. Sprich, ich esse halt keine Kohlenhydrate und keinen Zucker mehr. Also kein Brot, keine...
What's up everybody, this is Jeremy Griffin 86 coming at you with another YouTube vlog. I know I haven't vlogged in a while, I haven't posted video in a while. Actually, I just posted a beat that I made like a couple weeks ago, but I haven't really done any like vlogs, so I just want to do a little short one right now and tell you guys how I'm doing on this Prozac. I'm on 40 milligrams right now. I take it in the morning, and I think it's really working. If you've watched my last videos, you know that I deal with anxiety and panic attacks, and I have them really bad. It feels like a tightness in my chest. I have chest pains. It feels like you're about to have a heart attack. Like literally, you think you're gonna die, you know. And I deal with this every single day. It's like you live minute by minute when you deal with panic attacks and anxiety, because it's not a fun thing. But the Prozac really isn't helping with the anxiety, but it's helping me in other ways. I'm more social, I'm more productive, I want to do stuff. So I don't want to stop taking it because it actually is helping. Even my family is noticing that, you know, I'm a much better person with being on the Prozac. So it's been about a year that I've been on it. So it's a really old medication. I definitely recommend it if you want to talk to your psychiatrist about it. I definitely recommend it. It's a really great medication. But if you have any questions, comments, remarks, or anything, you can comment on this page, on my YouTube page, or you can send me an email. Maybe we can connect on Facebook. But that's pretty much it for now.
Hello everyone, this is another video. I know, 2 videos in a week. Wow, you are spoiled. Hello. So, I wanted to do a little bit of an update video. I know the videos you've seen so far are Voices from the Attic, my podcast. I wanted to do a health update because last time, and I've noticed that when I do updates on like mental health and stuff, people like listening to them and they're like, oh okay, I can kind of relate and stuff. So, let's do a little bit of a health update. First things first, I am exercising again. I'm getting back into the exercise. I do want to look a certain way. A few years back I was in a really kind of good shape and stuff before the PCOS stuff started going crazy. So what I've done so far is I've been going on 10,000 step walks, which is I think about 7 to 8k. I've done this quite frequently, so I've done this like about 3 to 4 times a week. Either walks for 30 minutes on the treadmill, or when it's not raining, spoiler alert, it's always raining in the UK, I do go on big hikes and stuff. So I've been doing that to kind of keep up with this lockdown and just clear my head and stuff, because I've noticed since the lockdown it's so easy to burn out and it's so easy to get caught in your own headspace. So it's nice to just leave the house, just to do a little bit of fresh air and just kind of clear you up a bit, get some sunshine and stuff like that. So I've been doing that. I've been having more of a schedule with my streams and stuff, so at least streaming like 3 times a week, 1 on GOG, 2 on my own channel and stuff. So like doing that every single Thursday and Friday on my own channel. So I've been trying to kind of like, it seems since last year, like I've continuously been, I don't know if anyone else has been in this struggle, and I hope if you have, you can relate to me here. Like it feels like you're constantly trying to grab everything and trying to kind of organize everything and just be like, okay, this needs to go here, and it feels like you're constantly like pulling thread on a jumper and you're trying to get everything compact into a certain way. But like the more you try to compact stuff and organize stuff, the more exhausted you get and the harder it seems. It just feels like that's what's been happening and stuff. So I've been dealing with that, but that's okay. It seems like it's getting a bit better. I finally got that wall fixed today. I finally put the rest of it up. I got it all put down. The funny thing is, like, I do actually have like a cloth which normally goes behind, which is the nice kind of moon background and stuff. But I was like, I've always left the wall kind of not finished. And like, I think it's jobs similar to that, where you have them and you're like, I'll just get to it at some point. It felt like a lot of people were enjoying the medicated me, but then I started kind of having doubts. I felt like...
What's up everybody, this is Jeremy Griffin 86 coming back at you with another YouTube vlog. Today's just a quick update on my Prozac. I'm taking 40 milligrams once in the morning, and this is like probably the best medication I've ever taken. Like, it totally saved my life. I was having really bad like social anxiety.
Oh hey, I didn't see you there. On Monday we talked about Celexa. Today we're going to talk about Prozac. Prozac, also known as fluoxetine, Prozac. Yet another selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor, meaning that it balances the serotonin in your brain. Serotonin makes you happy, reuptake takes that away, and the inhibitor inhibits. So,
just got off of Celexa, and my psychiatrist was like, take some Prozac. And I was like, all right. Prozac was for depression and anxiety, because that's what I have. Like I said in the last video, I could have sworn that they put me on 25 to start with, but the internet told me 20 milligrams is like maybe not the smallest, but a small dose. I don't know. Pretty sure it was 25. I could be wrong, but I think it was 25. And yeah, I took 25 milligrams of Prozac in the morning. I was actually on Prozac for a lot longer than I was on Celexa. The side effects of Prozac include nausea, drowsiness,
Hey guys, it's the Wilson Life. I was meaning to do a follow-up video about antidepressant drugs, and I've been meaning to do it for a while, but I haven't been making videos because I've been dealing with a lot of my own depression, stress, and anxiety upon coming to school, and it's gotten a lot better though because I've started taking Prozac, and I don't know if you guys know about Prozac, but it is an antidepressant that uses the ingredient fluoxetine, and I don't know if fluoxetine is the active ingredient or if it's actually the generic of Prozac, but that's what it is, and it's one of the oldest antidepressants out there, and according to my doctor, this is what he told me, is that some people have taken Prozac their entire life, you know, but again, you know, as they say in all of these type of medical videos, I'm not a doctor. You need to talk to your doctor before you make any decisions on what you're going to be taking for antidepressants, and I also encourage you to give other antidepressants a try if Prozac or any of the other options don't work out for you, because depression is treatable, and I've dealt with depression my whole life, and I've taken a couple other antidepressants and they didn't work well for me. I'm going to also talk about those too. The first antidepressant that I took was in middle school, early high school, and it's called Paxil, and it made me feel like kind of lethargic, kind of an emotional flatline, and it kind of stopped working after a while. And then after that, when it stopped working, I decided I would switch over to Wellbutrin, and Wellbutrin made me feel kind of jittery, kind of panicked, and I didn't really like Wellbutrin, so I gave up that one rather quickly. But Wellbutrin helped me get off of Paxil, and after I didn't like Wellbutrin, I didn't take any antidepressants for a couple years after high school was over. So during my first couple years of community college, when I was living at home, things were relatively stress-free. I had friends at community college. Things were going really well for me, so I didn't need to take anything. But since I've come to a new school, you know, being at a university is a whole different setting from being at a community college. I feel like things have been a little bit, actually a lot more stressful. Just because my classes are more difficult, and also because it's been a little bit difficult for me to meet a bunch of new friends, because my school people, for the most part, just kind of mind their own business. I wasn't really interested in joining clubs because I'm really involved with my guitar, and I also study a lot, and spending time doing outside things just kind of felt like something I didn't need at the time. But it's really good to have balance, and I've kind of learned that since coming here, because when I was dealing with the most anxiety, it was because I didn't really have people to hang out with or people to talk to here. So I only had my people back home that I could talk to, and I felt very isolated and strange here. So like every weekend I'd run home, and I think the panic attacks really started in like November. They were especially bad around Thanksgiving. I remember being super, super panicked, like at the Thanksgiving table. the next day we went to the movies. I felt like I was going to have a panic attack, so we had to leave them. Like, I couldn't handle being in the movie theater. I was feeling like I couldn't breathe. It was just awful. And I think most of it just had to do with the fact that I had finals coming up. I didn't really feel prepared for it. And being back home after feeling really isolated at school just made me feel nervous about going back, because this was after Thanksgiving that we went to the movie. And panic is really bad if you don't have any medication for it or anything. And I was able to go home when I was able to go home over Thanksgiving break. I went to the doctor and he prescribed me something called lorazepam, and lorazepam is like a quick release anti-anxiety medication, but it's not really meant for prolonged use. It's just used for people that have like occasional panic attacks. And my doctor at the time gave me a check sheet for depression. And at the time I was like, oh my gosh, no, I don't have depression. I just didn't want to accept it because I hadn't been on depression medication for a couple years and I felt kind of ashamed about that. But at the time, I also didn't realize I was pretty depressed at school and that maybe an antidepressant would help. But it wasn't until about a month later that I accepted that, and for about a month I was taking lorazepam, and lorazepam didn't really help that much. It helped very temporarily, but then evening would come and I'd start to feel the panic again and the heart racing, and I was having chest pains and feeling like I couldn't breathe, and it was just horrible. But in the last couple months, I think at the beginning of January, I came back on a Thursday. Like, it was a weekday that I went, and where I live, or where my home is like 90 minutes away from here. So I drove all the way home to make it to a doctor's appointment. I left right after class, and I was prescribed Prozac, and since I started taking Prozac, it's just been so much better. Like, I can't even explain. It's helped me overcome certain social barriers. Like, when you're dealing with anxiety, sometimes it's kind of like when you stub your toe and your body's reaction is to make you limp. It doesn't want you to step on your foot. When you have anxiety, your mind kind of tells you to stay away, kind of recluse yourself from people, because you feel kind of scared that the anxiety will come out when you're spending time with people and that you're going to embarrass yourself. And I mean, even for a while, the only person I would want to spend time with is like my best friend, and whenever other people would want to come around, I'd just be like, I feel really kind of nervous about it. It was just very difficult, especially being in the new environment and having all this other stress with school and having all this stuff to do, and dealing with anxiety was just something that I didn't want. And it kind of felt out of my control, especially around Thanksgiving when I first started having the panic attacks. So if you're dealing with panic or depression, I would highly recommend Prozac. Though I'd also highly recommend that, as I said before, you need to try different medications to see what would work for you. But because Prozac is one of the oldest antidepressant drugs out there, I guess I would say consider trying Prozac first. Of course, again, I'm not a medical specialist. I'm just a college student, and I dealt with a bunch of stress and depression. And I know if you are watching this video and you're considering looking for options, it sucks, and I know what you're going through. So, but yeah, to just my everyday YouTube subscribers, hello. And I'm doing fine now. I'm doing a lot better now that I've been taking Prozac. And I'm considering taking down the video where I'm talking about how great Wellbutrin is, because I made that like 2 years ago and people are still commenting it. So, alrighty. Talk to you guys later.
beste Tag deines Lebens.
Und ich dachte, das wäre mein Hochzeitstag.
Ha, nein, Schätzchen, das wird der schlimmste Tag deines Lebens. Lizzie, das ist ja so Harvard.
Wir werden so wie diese ausgeflippten Schriftsteller-Freaks. Äußerst brillant und düster, sexy.
Wirst du heute mit mir schlafen?
Ich warne dich aber vorher.
Was soll das jetzt wieder bedeuten?
Das bedeutet, sag nicht, ich hätte dich vorher nicht gewarnt.
Der College-Preis des Jahres 1985 geht an Elizabeth Merciless.
Diesen Augenblick möchte ich festhalten. Für immer. Vielen Dank. Wenn Sie eine Therapie vorschlagen wollen, lieber nicht. Damit haben Sie bei mir keinen Erfolg. Bei Hemingway gibt es diesen klassischen Augenblick in Fiesta, wo jemand Mike Campbell fragt, wie er denn pleite gegangen sei. Er antwortet darauf nur, so nach und nach und dann ganz abrupt. Eines Morgens wacht man auf und fürchtet sich vor dem Leben.
Hey there, beautiful souls. Avalona here, and it is so nice to be hanging out with you again. We have all been so sick here, week after week after week, after a nasty virus came through. So I am so happy to be back and healthy and able to talk to you. Today's video is going to focus on some of my witchiest tarot decks. Now, I want to preface this by saying these are not decks that are necessarily titled with the word witch in it, that are, you know, portrayed as a witch deck. These are decks that just simply hold a really beautiful, natural, mysterious, elegant, enthralling energy of witchiness within them. So these are decks that I personally use in my witches practice, my folk magical practice, in some way, shape or form, decks that I feel very akin to, very kindred to, and I'll explain why. And they will be in no particular order because I cannot be bothered doing that, okay? But thank you so much for sticking with me while I get through this video. I hope to give a little love to some of the older decks that I seldom see talked about, because I'm all about that, you know, I'm all about that. And maybe some new decks, who knows? All right, let's get into it. The first tarot deck that I'm going to show you is a really sweet one. It is, can you tell from the backing? Can you tell from the backing? This is the Herbcraft Tarot. This is the box. I keep mine in the box, and it is by, written by Letitia Guthrie and artwork by Joanna Powell Colbert. So this lovely little deck has been in my collection for a while. It's by no means a new release, and it has that naturopathic herbal medicine edge to it, which I find very much connected to the practice of witchcraft and folk magic. A great many witches that I know are either naturopaths or aromatic medicine practitioners or herbalists in some way, shape or form, or just fantastic growers, like really beautiful green thumbs. I am trying to cultivate my green thumb at the moment, so. And I just find this deck to be so gentle to work with, gentle and healing and just very inspiring, especially that green side of my practice, that I want to understand plant medicine better, not just the magical aspects of plants, which I understand quite well, but the medicinal aspects of plants. And so number one is the Herbcrafters Tarot. Number two is an oldie but a goldie. You'll recognize this one. Wildwood Tarot. We have Will Worthington artwork, Mark Ryan and John Matthews. If you don't know those names, they are druidic in nature. And so therefore we have a very earth-centric, wildwood, just energy attached to this deck. The backing is superb. Simple, yet superb. This is what it looks like. Completely reversible. And then you have
this gorgeous, gorgeous artwork by Will Worthington. There is something ancient and captivating. Not that it's part of the theme of this deck, but I always feel very Merlin, Arthurian legend whenever I'm working with the Wildwood. It's a sharp deck. This one has teeth. It is very pragmatic, and it has a wild kind of green man edge to it, which I find to be absolutely fascinating. It incorporates animals as well as human figures, and there is a lot to be said in the guidebook about it all. The guidebook is, it's chef's kiss. It's very witchy. It follows that upside down, somewhere upside down, I apologize. It follows that Wheel of the Year, the Wheel of 8, and there's such reverence to be found within this deck, and I had to include it. So that is the Wildwood Tarot at number 2. At number 3 is a deck that I acquired such a long time ago. I mean, over 10 years ago, I would say. Easy, over 10 years, maybe over 15 years ago. Maybe even more. It is, if you can't tell from the backing, it's not a common deck. I never see this one. I never see this one on social media. This is the Celtic Wisdom Tarot. And it is so unique. It is so sweet. It's got this kind of whimsical drawn, almost like kids' art feel to it, but it's not. And I'm not trying to be derogatory to the artist that did this. I can't remember. I can't actually remember the name of the artist or the illustrator. I do have the guidebook for this, but it is elsewhere. And so there's just such a sweet storybook kind of vibe to this deck, and because it revolves around that Celtic landscape, that Celtic wisdom, I always think the Wildwood going back there, and I always think of that Celtic mythology and the magic that the Celts really cultivated during their reign. And so it's a sweet little deck. I don't use this one as much as I could. This has become more of a collector's piece, but when I first got it, and I believe I got it secondhand off eBay back in the day, when I first obtained it, I worked with it all the time, and I'm not sure if it was at the same time as I was doing my my Order of Bards, Ovates and Druids year. I did my Bardic grade through the Order of Bards, Ovates and Druids. Anyway, not the point, but this one here was well used during that time. So that's number 3, the Celtic Wisdom Tarot. The next deck doesn't really need that much of an introduction. You can see the back of it. This is ginormous. It is the Druidcraft Tarot, and I don't think I need to explain why. This one feels witchy, but in a really grounded, earthy way. I love a good earthy energy within my witchy decks. The artwork, I believe it was Will Worthington. I believe. Is just so beautiful, like up close. This is one of the best decks that I have found, not the only one, but one of the best that I have found that is fantastic for path working with tarot. So you can really step into this one. It feels very illustrated story, almost Tolkien-esque. I'm very careful when I mention Tolkien, very careful. I have mad respect for the author. I think this one is just gorgeous. There's a medicine to this deck. It's a medicine to all these decks. What am I talking about? So what was that? Is this number 4? I think this is number 4. I'm going to lose count, so I shan't mention any more numbers because I just think I will lose count. But an absolutely beautiful deck, very gentle, very soft, yet deeply wise. It has such a... It's almost got a coaching energy to it, if I'm being entirely truthful. So, Druidcraft Tarot. Mwah. Chef's kiss. I'm going to be a bit cheeky here. You'll see why. At number 5, I'm going to put forth my Bones of the Bone Stone. And I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to tell you why this gorgeous deck is witchy. It's obviously devoid of colour. It's in sepia. It takes
Hello. This medication has a very special place in my heart because it was the first psychiatric medication that I ever used. I got into Brintelix or Trintelix. It was 2016. I was having lots of problems with my ADHD, but mostly it was like anxiety. I was having lots of anxiety, and I didn't know what was wrong with me. Back then I wasn't diagnosed with ADHD. So I was convinced I had some kind of serotonin problem in my brain or something because I was having so much anxiety. So I finally gave up and I went to psychiatrist and I went there and I told my story, how I need help and I need some kind of medication because I cannot go on like this. He gave me a prescription for this new antidepressant called Trintelix. In my country it goes by name Brintelix, which is a quite new medication. It was put on market in 2013. And also the medication, it has a little bit different structure. According to my psychiatrist, it also affects GABA receptors. So I started using it. Was in late December I started my usage. It took over a month till I felt something like a little bit better. And the one thing that I remember for that medication, that like there wasn't really like any side effects except for the nausea in the beginning. When you, for example, compare it to Lexapro that I used after that, I didn't have any sexual dysfunction or anything. I didn't feel any like negative effects, but also the positive effects were not so like big. Like I felt this a little bit better, but I cannot say it was like a game changer for me. I mean, it did something. It made me feel a little bit better. It was like better than nothing. But in the end, I like Lexapro a lot more than Trintelix. I actually would like to try Trintelix again and see how it would work now. I still remember it. I mean, it has a very special place in my heart because it was the first medication that I ever used. So yeah, that was my experience with Trintelix. I mean, when it comes to side effects, I mean, to me it was a good medication because I didn't have any kind of bad side effects. I mean, but also like the gain wasn't like that big. So it's like I have like very neutral attitude towards the medication. Like just because it's new doesn't mean it's better than the older medications. In my case, I liked Lexapro much better. So that was my experience, and I have nothing to say anymore, and I'll talk to you later, and take care. Bye.
Welcome back! In today's video, we're going to be talking about vortioxetine, also known as Trintelix. And this is in response to one of our viewers who asked us to make a video specifically about this medication. If you would like us to make a video specifically for you, drop that in the comment section below and that video will be coming your way. So, in this video, we are going to talk about the top 5 things that you need to know about vortioxetine. Starting with number 1, What is vortioxetine? Well, vortioxetine, also known as Trintellix, is an antidepressant, but it's not your typical antidepressant. It has multimodal action. What that means is that it has various actions on different serotonin receptors and transport systems, which lead to increased serotonin, norepinephrine, dopamine, glutamate, acetylcholine, and even histamine. This is why vortioxetine boasts pro-cognitive effects. It has been shown to improve cognitive symptoms such as lack of memory, lack of focus, lack of attention, and even processing speed. And it has been shown to do this better than any antidepressant on the market. It is superior in performance in processing speed, psychomotor speed, executive control, and cognitive control. It did tie Cymbalta or duloxetine in delayed recall or improving delayed recall. And very specific to vortioxetine is in a 2021 study where they took patients with mild cognitive impairment. So this was an elderly population with a mean age of 70 years old that had just mild cognitive impairment without depression. And it showed that in 1, 3, and 6 month follow-ups that they had significant improvement in their cognitive symptoms. And by the end of the study, those participants had a return to normal cognitive function, which is absolutely amazing. So does vortioxetine make you smarter? Well, it won't exactly increase your IQ, but if it helps to improve your memory, your attention, and your processing speed, it's gonna make you feel a whole lot smarter. So what is it used for? Well, it was FDA approved in 2013 for the treatment of major depressive disorder in adults. It is also used off-label to treat generalized anxiety disorder. It is also used adjunctively to other antidepressants to treat specifically those cognitive symptoms of depression. You see, when you have major depressive disorder, one of the symptoms you may have is lack of focus, lack of attention, and a brain fog. And some patients will even have pseudo-dementia. This typically happens in the elderly. And so it's also used to treat geriatric depression because it can help improve and eliminate that pseudo-dementia or those memory impairments that show up in the elderly when they have depression. So how long does it take for it to work? Well, it typically takes 2 to 4 weeks at a therapeutic dose of 10 to 20 milligrams. And if it's not working by 6 to 8 weeks, then you may consider switching your medication, of course, under the direction of your provider. So is vortioxetine addicting? No, it is not addicting. It doesn't cause dependency. And due to its long half-life of 66 hours, the incidence of withdrawal or abstinence syndrome that you can get with multiple medications, including antidepressants, is actually lessened. But it is advised that you still want to taper off of the medication slowly. But with this medication, you can typically taper off more quickly than with other antidepressants that have a shorter half-life. And so what are those side effects and those drug interactions? Well, when you're looking at the side effects, always remember that these side effects are transient and typically will resolve after a week of taking the medication. We have serotonin in our gut, and so most of the side effects with any antidepressant that is stimulating serotonin is going to have effects and the impact of the serotonin in our gut. And so the most common symptoms you're going to see are going to be nausea, diarrhea, dry mouth, and dizziness. There is also a report of sexual dysfunction of 16 to 34%. However, please note that the placebo effect of this side effect was also relatively high, and the reports were 14 to 20%. So take that for what it's worth. But from my experience, what I've found is that if patients are experiencing any type of sexual dysfunction with an SSRI and we switch to vortioxetine, it typically is resolved. And another thing about vortioxetine is that there is no significant effect on body weight. A lot of antidepressants get a bad rap because they cause weight gain, when in fact they don't cause weight gain. The pill doesn't come with calories. However, because of some of the way that it's affecting serotonin, it can increase your cravings and impact your hunger hormones. And so therefore, that's how they cause weight gain. However, Trintellix, because of its multimodal action, it actually has been shown to have no significant impact on cravings, which means people aren't gaining weight. Now, as with all antidepressants, there are those rare and dangerous side effects and black box warning that I talk about in the video that I made about the top antidepressants used for major depressive disorder. So that also holds true for vortioxetine. And so when we're talking about drug interactions, you have to keep in mind that vortioxetine is mainly metabolized by the CYP2D6 substrate. So any inhibitors or inducers of that substrate taken with vortioxetine are going to require some adjustments in your dosing of vortioxetine. You also want to avoid concomitant use with those MAOI antidepressants because that will put you at a significantly high risk for serotonin syndrome. So you want to avoid it 14 days before or 21 days after taking vortioxetine. You don't want to take any type of MAOI medication. And though it can be used adjunctively with other antidepressants, it must be done very cautiously because of the risk of serotonin syndrome. And this includes all medications that can increase serotonin. It's not just antidepressants that can do this, but there are pain medications that can do it as well, such as tramadol, triptan medications for migraines, tryptophan, which you can get over the counter in a supplement, and even St. John's wort. Any type of supplements that will increase serotonin are going to potentially impact and increase the risk of serotonin syndrome when taking it with vortioxetine. Caution should also be taken with blood thinners, and this includes aspirin and ibuprofen or any non-steroidal anti-inflammatories because there is an increased risk of bleeding. That's why it's important to let your provider know all the medications and supplements that you are taking. So that's it. That wraps up the video on the 5 things that you need to know about vortioxetine. Is there anything that you would like to include in that list? Drop it down in the comment section below. I love to hear about it, and we learn from sharing each other's experiences. I thank you for watching. I wish you well on your mental health care journey, and I'll look forward to seeing you next week.
So Cymbalta was first approved for medical use in the United States in 2004, and by 2018 it was the 36th most commonly prescribed medication in the United States, with more than 21 million prescriptions. Welcome back, Straight Talkers. Today I'm going to talk about the medication Cymbalta so that you can be better informed when deciding whether or not to start this medication. But first, make sure you hit that subscribe button so that you can be the first to know when new content comes out. So duloxetine is a generic name and Cymbalta is the brand name. So how does this medication work? Cymbalta is considered to be a serotonin norepinephrine reuptake inhibitor, or SNRI for short, and it works by increasing the amounts of serotonin and norepinephrine in certain parts of the brain. In adults, Cymbalta is FDA approved for the treatment of major depressive disorder, generalized anxiety disorder, diabetic peripheral neuropathic pain, fibromyalgia, and chronic musculoskeletal pain. And this includes things such as osteoarthritis or chronic low back pain. It's also FDA approved for the treatment of generalized anxiety disorder in kids 7 and older, and it's often used off-label to treat several other conditions, including neuropathic or chronic pain disorders, other anxiety disorders, and stress urinary incontinence. Cymbalta comes in delayed release capsules, and dosing is generally between 30 and 120 milligrams daily. Most people will take this medication once daily, but some people will also do split dosing. Generally, if I'm using this medication in kids, I'll often start at an even lower dose to help reduce the risk of potential side effects. And my approach is generally always to start low, go slow, meaning that we start at a low dose and increase the dose gradually and slowly over time with the goal of finding the lowest effective dose. Once this medication is started, it usually takes a couple weeks before you start noticing a difference, and in many people, it'll take a whole 1 to 2 months before it reaches its full effect at the prescribed dose. And because of this delay, I typically recommend starting therapy during this time because the benefits of therapy can be seen right away. And the goal of treatment with this medication is complete remission of current symptoms, as well as the prevention of future episodes. Now let's talk about the potential side effects. It's important to realize that many side effects are often considered to be dose dependent, meaning that the likelihood of getting them increases as the dose increases. Some are also time dependent, meaning that they begin immediately upon starting the medication or whenever we make a change in the dosing of it. But what we typically see is that side effects will go away with time as the body gets adjusted to the medication. The common but usually more mild side effects of Cymbalta can include things such as nausea, headaches, dry mouth, fatigue, insomnia, dizziness, constipation or diarrhea, decreased appetite, and excessive sweating. More serious but less common side effects could include increased suicidal thoughts or actions in those under the age of 25 years old, serotonin syndrome, increased chances of bleeding, manic episodes, liver damage, and seizures. When someone is put on Cymbalta, it's ultimately unknown exactly how long they'll need to be on it, but research suggests that once someone's symptoms return to baseline and they're back to feeling like normal, they should continue the medication at the current dose for another 6 to 12 months. And what this does is it helps prevent relapse or recurrence of symptoms. When deciding to come off of Cymbalta, please do not stop taking this medication without talking to your doctor first. And this medication does have a higher risk of discontinuation symptoms if the medication is stopped too quickly. Symptoms can include dizziness, headaches, paresthesias, fatigue, vomiting, irritability, insomnia, diarrhea, anxiety, and excessive sweating. So make sure to let your doctor know if these symptoms start to occur when you try to come off the medication, because there's different approaches that we can take to reduce these unwanted effects. Now head on over to the next video to find out more ways that you can help your child live their best life.
This is my first update video since 3.5 years. Since then, a lot has happened. I've changed meds, I think multiple times. I've changed countries. I've been on and off different things. All kinds of things have changed. But so I want to talk about in this video is my experience with Cymbalta or duloxetine now that I've been on it for a year. And so I'm going to talk about the pros and the cons. And I'll compare it specifically, especially to citalopram, which I've talked about in a previous video. On the positive side, the pros, first, I do feel there are fewer negative thoughts and they have less of an impact on me. So that's a good thing, which is what you want with an antidepressant. The other big thing that's a positive for it is that I don't feel lazy, which was the case with citalopram. With that, I was feeling apathetic, felt like I didn't want to do anything. I felt okay or pretty good in terms of mental state, but I didn't want to do anything. So with duloxetine or Cymbalta, I am not getting that feeling, which is good. Now, the negative side effects or the negative aspects of it in general, I would say there's three main ones. First, there's I don't have a feeling that everything is fine. It's a bit hard to describe. Like I felt with citalopram, I felt more of almost a high, a sense that, oh, everything's going to be fine, everything's okay. I don't feel that with duloxetine. The other thing is the sexual side effects, which I felt pretty much with any antidepressant. Main thing is essentially becomes much more difficult to climax. So that's the bit of a downer. And then the third thing is weight gain. I gained a lot of weight actually on duloxetine. I think it's because it increases your appetite, so you end up eating more. And I went up, I'm not sure exactly how much, but I've gained somewhere between 5 to 10 kilograms, I don't know, 20 pounds maybe, something like that, over the period of time. Now, since then, I've actually lost weight. Like right now, at least I'm at a normal BMI range, which is the first time that I'm within a normal BMI range almost since I started taking it. And that took a lot of work, actually, at least a lot of effort to mainly reduce calories and do a bit of exercise. But that's where things are at. I'm relatively happy with duloxetine. It's not like an amazing experience, but it's doing the job reasonably well. And I should add, I am on 90 milligram dosage, which is a high dose for it. because on 60 milligrams I was still having some really negative thoughts, so the doctor ended up increasing it, and it's not bad. I don't see myself getting off it anytime soon. I did actually try to just decrease the dose, and I was going through a really hard time having really negative thoughts. So I'm not keen on trying to get off it or reduce it. Now, one thing also I should add is alongside it, the doctor had prescribed me with olanzapine, which I'm not entirely sure what it's supposed to do, but what it does, my experience seems to do, is it helps with sleep, given one is taking duloxetine. If I forget to take olanzapine, then I actually can't go to sleep.